Where's the button? Where's the button? Jesus Christ, I can't find the button. Oh, good Lord, my spleen hurts.
Are you talking? Are you talking while I'm playing?
I'm trying to find the but I can't. I can figure out how to mute me, but I can't figure out how to mute you.
You don't need to mute me. Hello again, friends, and you are our friends. Welcome back to
I
another
wish you
edition.
were a mute.
Welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, the music and wrestling spectacular that you look forward to each and every week. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. We have lots of things to talk about this week with this man, the Fred Rogers of puppies, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Should be very quiet, Brian. I'm trying not to wake up Buddy and Alfie. And that's why that when you started into that death rattle of a fucking organ solo, I realized I can mute myself so you can't hear me, but I was trying to figure out but I should have already been acquainted with this. Now that come to think of it, this should have been the first thing I asked about. The button to stop you or mute you or take you away so I can't hear you play. My lights will go out. But because I didn't want you to wake up the puppies.
Is this what we have
with
today?
That and those
the Whispering Bob Harris edition of the show?
Well, we'll see. I'm going to gradually work into it. They're settled down now, the little demons. But anyway, I was trying to mute you down so that your dog whistling shrill notes. Oh, I heard a snort. Oh, he just turned it over. That's okay. Anyway, your fucking rotten, horrible music.
What?
Well, I was afraid was going to give my dogs some kind of nightmares as they're in their little playpen over here.
You know, that's rude. That's nothing but rude. Meanwhile, you're whispering. What do you think the listeners think about this?
It certainly is. It's rude to subject innocent animals to that kind of
And I wasn't
sound torture. What is it? I wasn't
subjecting any innocent animals. I was subjecting a guilty Jim Cornette to. Oh, and I wasn't subjecting you to anything. I was playing a wonderful melody that the listeners all across the world look forward to. Some say they hum it while walking in the streets. They hear it in their head when they wake up.
Yeah, they hear it in their head after every traumatic brain injury.
Hey,
what about let's give it a title. I'll call it the Ballad of Poopfoot.
No, that could be your new song because that's what you're living right now.
I just cleaned up. We needed a couple of extra minutes before we started recording because I had to clean up a poopy foot. Somebody had a poopy, but then was jumping around and stepped in it before that I could come to the rescue. So I had to take poopy foot in to get cleaned up.
What about the carpet?
Well, no, it was on their little mat, their mat/blanket. It's a waterproof. I sound like now I'm working at Hammaker Schlemmer. It's a waterproof weave. It was on their property, but he didn't notice where he was stepping. Sometimes you just have to step in it, Brian, don't you? Haven't you figured that out by now? We've been doing the show for 10 years. Haven't you figured out every once in a while we just have to step in it?
It's tough when you realize the bathroom is the nightclub. That's the problem.
I got a question to ask you because we talked about what was it now? I've said Hammaker Schlemmer. Now I want to call him Paul Schlemmer, Paul Snavitz, Paul Michael Glazer. What is that fat fucking guy's name?
Paul Walter Hauser, and I got to talk to you about that.
Well, they deleted his Twitter there because he slunk off into obscurity.
Do you know what role he played? I didn't know this. Someone brought it up, and I said, holy shit. Maybe the best role he ever had.
What?
He was the Juggalo on Always Sunny in Philadelphia. When Charlie goes to work in the school and he takes a Juggalo under his wing?
I guess that was years ago now, because he's older and fatter and more of a lost cause as a person. Well, isn't that something? Well, this brings up something else, something that I was that. What are you laughing at?
Not even already? A real Juggalo, a cosplay Juggalo.
Well, he did. They don't ask you to show your card when you're applying for a role. But anyway, the point is, because we were talking about old Paul Walter Snavitz, Here's the thing. I notice I'm thinking, is this just another case of in the wrestling business again? Is this the wrestling business, the wrestling personalities, the wrestling fans? There are things unique to that atmosphere. Everybody's always going, well, you don't see that in baseball, or you don't see that in Hollywood, or you don't see, you see what I'm saying. So it occurs to me, since my basic the beef that people have with me basically is that I make fun of their favorite wrestlers, the modern day cosplayers, the trampoline cowboys, the whatever the case, just these indie minded mud show goofballs. I make fun of their favorite wrestlers. And that's, then oh, goddamn Cornette, he's rotten. But does that happen with such vehemence in any other world of sport or entertainment? Brian, name a baseball player who's a big baseball player today. Today.
Juan Soto from the New York Mets.
Okay, now who was a big baseball player in 1986? 40 years ago.
From any team or from the
just
same
a
team?
Big name, a big baseball player.
Darryl Strawberry.
Person, Darryl Strawberry. Okay, well, if is Darryl Strawberry still around? I haven't heard his name in quite some time.
He's alive. He is. He's been religious and clean for a long time, and he appears to be one of these guys that really has cleaned up his act and cleaned up his life, and it's kind of wonderful to see.
Well, there you go. Well, if Darryl Strawberry tells, what'd you say, Roberto Soto?
Juan Soto.
Roberto Soto was the fucking wrestler. If Darryl Strawberry tells Juan Soto that he plays shitty baseball and here's why, do the baseball fans like, oh, goddamn, that fucking Darryl Strawberry, that son of a bitch, he's a no good? Or if, let's say if Tina Turner was to say Taylor Swift can't fucking sing, and here's why.
No, that would absolutely trigger a massive backlash. Taylor Swift is the greatest manipulator of an audience in entertainment. I don't even know who the last person at that level was. Maybe
all right, well, maybe the Swift boaters or whatever they are. Then they're. But what? Okay, what about if Earth, Wind, and Fire? If Maurice White told Puffy or Kanye or who Kenny Willie, whoever the fuck they are, you guys can't fucking sing worth shit, and here's why. Would the music fans immediately go, oh, you son of Maurice White, we hate you? Why do they take it so personally in wrestling when another wrestling personality, equally who they have probably never met, it just says, yeah, well, yeah, no, you're the shits, pal.
I do think it happens kind of everywhere now just because of social media. Traditionally, and especially now, wrestling fans, they're vocal and they have their thoughts and their opinions. And I think almost every wrestling fan thinks they're the most knowledgeable wrestling fan. I think that's like a thing. Every wrestling fan thinks they know the most about wrestling, at least amongst their friends or whatever it may be. So because of that, you get to the point where people think they know more than you about these things.
Than you.
Because, hey, Jim Cornette's not watching all the wrestling I'm watching. Jim Cornette doesn't keep up with Tokyo this or that. So they're very vocal.
I've sat on a fucking toilet longer than anybody probably out there has been watching wrestling, much less watch fucking more wrestling.
The other thing is, there is a large element of the social media engagers, I guess we could say, that are the traditional lonely shut-in. They are the traditional, there isn't much going on, this is my thing, how dare you do anything to try to take it away or hurt it or make other people think what you think. And I think there is a lot of
and
that.
they're the ones that would write the letter to the newspaper when they had that big main event title match and did an angle once every 6 months. And the announcer would say, for our sick and shut-in fans, we're going to give them a main event. And then, oh, goddamn it, the heels would get heat. And the sick and shut-in fans especially would be up in arms. Or potentially if they didn't have any arms, legs, or if they didn't have legs, whatever they had, they'd be up in.
Like even the Paul Walter Hauser thing. I mean, that's kind of, even though he's an actor and he's famous and people know who he is, he's still that fan, it appears.
But I think he broke the mold also because not a lot of people came out and defended him. They were like, well, why don't you shut the fuck up?
The other thing is the whole idea he was getting such backlash, he had to delete his Twitter. I'm not even going to speak for you. I've seen the backlash I've gotten over the last 10 years for a variety of things, and every time I've said, go fuck yourself.
Yes.
But I mean, it's come pretty hard and heavy. I don't give a shit. I don't believe that he was getting it much worse than we've gotten it our own worst.
No, and he had like in the tens of thousands of followers or whatever the fuck, and it wasn't like, Jesus Christ, he was inundated, and all. See, we're big enough that we trigger the bots and shit too. We found that out with various topics, but I was gonna say, what about if Robert De Niro came out and criticized old Paul Walterhausen? But then I thought, everybody would have to agree with De Niro anyway, regardless.
No, but I saw it. Oh, I'm trying to remember exactly. I think it was Scorsese. Maybe even a couple other filmmakers. But I think it was Scorsese, who now is embracing AI, apparently. But it was criticizing the Marvel movies. That how could you compare those movies to all the other movies when it's so much CGI, it's so much graphics? I will argue that some of those Marvel movies are masterpieces. But Scorsese came out against it, and you would see online, shut up, grandpa, or you haven't done a good movie in forever, or what do you know? Like, it's insane. I think it's just social media has opened the door. People say it's like people feel comfortable now talking because they know they won't get punched in the face. I don't even think it's that. I just think there's a lot of people that always wanted someone to listen to them. And now they've got a place to go and they can do their best.
As I've always said, that people were always this stupid. We just didn't have Twitter. You didn't hear from everyone to illustrate every day how stupid that most people seem to be. But nevertheless, and Paul, just, we barely knew ye on Twitter. Maybe you'll come back one of these days. But I speak for Robert De Niro saying, I don't care. I don't think you could act like you were on fire if you were in a furnace. So
you should be nice. That's the future Arn Anderson of the silver screen.
Oh, Christ on a cracker. That if I was the Lundy family, I would sue to prevent that from happening, much less the Andersons and the Rogalskis and however many other fucking people are involved.
All right, well, what's causing all this here today?
Hey, thank you, Charlie from Starkville, who sent puppy toys, including a bone-like structure and a rope-like device that they can chew on that it is scented with beef. And it's just amazing. And the puppies, Buddy and Alfie, are enjoying those. As a matter of fact, they're in the pen with them right now.
A beef rope?
I brought them up here. It's a beef scented. It's what the tag said. It's a colorful kind of rope-like apparatus with shagginess at the ends. And it's allegedly scented with, I don't know, I smelled it. I didn't smell any cheeseburgers or whatever, but it's scented with a beef scent. I'm looking over my shoulder now, and they're just having a fine nap.
Every 6 months or so, maybe even a little more than that, every year or so, I get a book in the mail from Charlie from Starkville. He put out a new book, and he always sends a nice signed copy, so I do appreciate that. I want to say that here.
One of these days, you're going to get around to reading one of them.
One of these days. I mean, there's a lot of books.
A lot of books.
I'm rereading The Power Broker, so that may take me some time.
Oh, what is that, 1,200 or 1,300 pages?
Oh, but it flies by. It's great.
It flies by. You better hope it flies by. If it hits you in the head, it'd kill you. All righty. But anyway, so here we are today.
That's right. And of course,
Yes.
whether today or any day, there's lots of stuff at Cornette's Collectibles, JimCornette.com.
Boy, howdy, I'll tell you what, we have just finished signing. I've got a frog in my pocket. No, I've got puppies in the pen. We've just finished signing all the copies of the book Heroes and Friends that was ordered during the month of June, and the benefit went to the Crusade for Children. And Hotchkiss Featherbottom is this coming weekend coming back from his business conference. He's learning a new trade just in case. He's getting into aluminum siding because he thinks it's the wave of the future. Well, once this internet shit slows down. But when he gets back, they're going to be handed off to him, and everything will be winging its way to the customers at JimCornette.com. But there's no reason, nothing preventing you, nothing between you, but air and opportunity of going to JimCornette.com right now and ordering some wonderful wrestling-related things that I may or may not have a finger in, and you'll see the plethora of things when you go there and click on collectibles. It's a joy to behold. It'll bring a smile to your face. It'll make a sick man well and make young girls squeal. JimCornette.com.
All right, no guarantees. JimCornette.com. Jim, we have a lot to talk about today, and of course we have a big WWE Raw, a newsworthy edition for once. Why don't we start with some classic wrestling talk? I have a letter here to Wrestling Review, post dated February 13th, it looks like, 1986, Akron, Ohio, to Wrestling Review. Dear Sirs, I've been a wrestling fan for 20 years, and it's very heart-sickening to read an article like this that appeared in my local paper. And attached is a photocopy of an article. I'll read this real quick. Too busy, Hulk Hogan criticized. I want to thank Wishes Can Happen, a volunteer organization comprised of women in the Canton area that does everything in its power to grant a last wish to a dying child. Every effort possible was made to try to grant a 5.5-year-old boy his wish to meet Hulk Hogan. The Hulk and many other wrestlers were at the Coliseum January 19th. Yet no one could take the time to say hello to this little boy. Wishes Can Happen arranged an ambulance, nurse, and doctor to go with the little boy to the Coliseum to meet Hulk, but the World Wrestling Federation stated a rude, firm, and at several times vulgar no. No one could see him before the performance, before a match, or at the end of a show for a few minutes. They were all too busy. But these people have presented themselves as cartoon characters on Saturday mornings for children to idolize and imitate. Why then could they not give a few minutes of their time to a child with no time left? Back to the letter here. I know those wrestlers could have at least taken 5 minutes to make this little boy's wish come true. I've been to a lot of matches, and I've seen wrestlers come out before, during, and after the matches to meet the fans. It's been WWF wrestlers, not just NWA wrestlers. So why couldn't Hulk Hogan make this boy's wish come true? Hulk is supposedly a people's champion. Well, I know he's sure lost a lot of fans around here and has signed a very disappointed and ex-fan in Akron, Ohio. So obviously we don't know too many other details about this. This is from 40 years ago.
Well, but still, somebody dropped the ball bad on something.
In terms of, I mean, what they're saying is that WWF on multiple occasions gave them multiple replies. We don't know who that's from or where that's from, but in your experience, before Make-A-Wish was a big thing nationally, obviously this is a localized version of that, but did you have, you know, the NWA and Smoky Mountain, OVW, wherever, did you have kids' hospitals or people get in touch with you, or did sick kids ever just show up without invitation hoping to meet a wrestler?
Hold on now. It's not like there was a goddamn line of people in fucking gurneys and hospital beds hooked up to IVs out the back door of the Coliseum. Hold on here now. It is highly common, or was highly common, in the 90s. And what year was this? 80 what?
86.
Okay, I wasn't there then, but it was highly common in the WWF in the 90s that there would be a kid brought back. I mean, radio station winners might be brought back also to a room, not to the locker room, but you would bring them backstage to a location. They'd do a meet and greet. But there was plenty of kids that would show up in different places that would have been arranged through the local promoter or the building, hearing about it, contacting the local promoter, whoever was on Ed Cohen's staff that was in charge of that building and that promoting that town. They'd hear, oh, we've got a kid that's going to come with his parents and wants to meet Razor Ramon or whatever, that type of thing. And you would do that. I mean, it was certainly didn't sound like it was a goddamn major WrestleMania pay-per-view or anything. It may have been a TV taping, but a lot of that shit was done at TV tapings also. Sue Aitchison, that worked in the office, and I can't remember what her title was, but she worked with a specific title. She worked with a lot of the organizations and the charities and things. If there was someone, that wanted to meet one of the guys, and it was a child like that. But the point is still, if this was just a house show or whatever, the agents, somebody would have been in the box office. Did they say it was a TV taping or no? I wasn't paying attention, honestly.
It wasn't a TV taping. And as you're saying the agents, I'm just thinking if these people dealt with Chief Jay Strongbow, is this how he would have dealt with it?
Well, I mean, I think Strongbow, would have been in a locker room. They didn't put him out in front of the public but like a Hebner or a Tony Gurria. Even Tony Gurria may have been a prick, but usually that's the thing. If you had a child in an ambulance with a fucking nurse present themselves at the arena, and that was visibly verifiable that this was true, I can't believe that. Who's the box office manager? Would they have been the first person these people contacted? Did they walk in the front? They would have gone to an agent and said, hey, there's a dying kid in an ambulance outside. Oh, sure. Well, I can't understand how something wasn't done, is what I'm saying. It's not like this was an onslaught of dozens or however many kids where they would have had to have set something up and organize it. It was a specific incident. And even if they weren't aware of it ahead of time, who's the fucking Grinch that provided the wall that said, no, this is not going to go any further. We can't do this. Because I don't know about Hogan, but I can't believe that there was nobody on the roster that if you'd have went up and said, there's a kid in an ambulance and blah, 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 okay. Even in the 80s.
Well, so that's what I was going to say. In the 80s, was Hogan big enough? Do you think they ever encountered kids pretending to be sick to try to meet him? Because that's happened too. I mean, I've heard about celebrities.
Not once. If the fucking kid was working to be sick and rented an ambulance, I say meet him anyway. Fuck, who was it? MJF as a fucking kid? If he's going to that much fucking trouble, goddamn, go and give him some autograph shit. That's a story. He could have told that story. This kid one time pretended he had goddamn leprosy and rented an ambulance and a nurse just to he was only 6. He had to work a newspaper route till he was 42 to pay for it.
And obviously the article blames Hogan, but we don't even know if Hogan knew about this.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if someone had gone to Hogan and said that, Hogan might have said no, but if somebody with the company had actually gone and asked for that, they would have come back with somebody else. Here's Steve Lombardi. Meet Steve Lombardi, kid. I mean, anybody. That's what I'm saying. It didn't have to be fucking Hogan. Somebody would have done it. They would have got somebody. If I don't know why that fell apart like that.
And again, 5.5 years old, the cartoon is cited. That may be a kid that watches the cartoon more than any actual wrestling, because it was a big deal.
I'll tell you what, you remember that I may have told you this story years ago, or it may have been before you were even part of my podcasting life, young man. I had to change, bring the new blood in, but I remember John Owen from Delaware.
Oh, yeah, I was friends with John.
Yeah. Well, and he had come to I guess it was still the Philly Spectrum then, or whatever. He'd come to the fucking arena in Philly, and he was at the top of the ramp. When I got there, I said, I'll send somebody back up for you, because I was a heel, a manager at the time. People were yelling and blah, blah, blah. So I go down and I fucking put my stuff in the locker room, and I asked this guard, I said, that kid in the wheelchair up there, can you bring him down here just to the bottom of the ramp so I can visit, talk with him for a minute? I know him. And then, oh, he'll have to go around I said, well, the building is not open yet, and he's in a wheelchair, so he can't, because he had actually told me he couldn't come down I guess the Spectrum wasn't all the way compliant. If he was in the arena, he couldn't get to the floor from where his tickets were with his chair, or whatever the fuck's going on. I said, just bring him down the ramp so that the people don't yell at us while I'm talking to the young man, because it's distracting, and then he can go right back up. Oh, no. And this guy fucking got salty with me about it. Where I started cussing him, or I started to cuss him, and I said, you know what? Fuck it, never mind. And I turned around and started to walk away, and he followed me with it. Like, well, I'm telling you that. I said,
oh, shit.
Leave it alone, motherfucker. I said, about that time you say one more goddamn word to me, and I swear I will come and I'll kick you in the fucking balls. And right then, over the guy's shoulder, here comes Vince and Bruce and JR in the building.
Oh, my God.
But then, when JR's used to it, Bruce was like, oh, God. And Vince wanted to know, what the fuck? I said, I wanted to talk to a kid in a wheelchair, and this son of a bitch didn't want to fucking wheel him 50 feet, nor refrained from giving me shit about it. And Vince had somebody go, and suddenly John Owen mysteriously appeared at the end of the hallway moments later.
I don't know why this is.
What were we talking about?
I don't know why this made me think of it. One of my favorite stories, one of my favorite Dennis Carluzzo ribs. May have been around the same time, and I think it was Philly. And you guys were doing either a Raw. I think it must have been a Raw there. And in a conference room in a hotel was you, Vince, Shane, Jim Ross, Pat Patterson, Bruce Pritchard.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know who else. And
it was a production meeting the night before the pay-per-view. That's where we'd all get in one of the rooms at the hotel that had the big table, and they'd read over the format and the time and the blah, blah, blah.
And around this same time, there was this fan, very nice guy. He would go to a lot of the shows, named Dave Baumkratz, and they would call him the 35-year-old kid because he had like features that made you think he was like a kid, and he was actually like, in his late 30s or whatever he was. Very nice guy, and very nice guy. But he was always hanging around, and he was ribbable, so sometimes things happened. And Dennis, I think Mark Carluzzo did it. They saw him hanging out in the hotel lobby, and they called him from one of the other hotel phones. They called like the front desk, like, hey, do you see the guy with the glasses and the hat on? Can you get him over here? We got to tell him something. And she gets him on the phone, and they say, hey, buddy, it's me. It's Shane McMahon. You got to do me a favor. You got to get me a bunch of drinks. You got to bring it to the conference room. You got to do it. Can you please do it? Oh, of course, Shane, anything for you. He's never met Shane McMahon in his life. Of course, anything for you. And you can tell me if this is true or not. The story goes that Dennis and Mark, and maybe Donnie B, whoever else, went outside because there were windows facing the room so they could see him come in. And this guy walked into the room with all these drinks and said, here are your drinks, Shane.
The tray's wingspan was like 2 feet bigger than this guy's, and he had all the fucking drinks and the glasses and the blah blah blah. And because Dennis, they were waiting till this fucking meeting broke up so they could get me and we could all go to Ribbit. And I was fucking starving and dying for it to be over with. And then here comes goddamn room service. It was like a Marx Brothers movie.
The story goes that he puts the drinks down. He says, "Here you go, Shane. Here are your drinks." And Shane goes, "Oh, okay, thanks." And the guy leaves, and Vince turns to Shane and goes, "You're not going to drink that, are you?" And Shane said, No. I don't know why the previous story and the story about the 1986 sickly child made me think of Dave Baumkratz bringing sodas to the McMahon.
That was Mind Games in September 96 in Philadelphia.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Wow. Good memory. I can't believe you just pulled that out.
Well, because where would I have been at that in Philadelphia at a pay-per-view when I was in the production meetings between that era of time? And yeah, that was September of 96. Michaels and Undertaker, or not Michaels and Mankind is what I'm trying to say to you.
I got video somewhere of Dennis and a fake Golga presenting Dave Baumkratz with a Fan of the Year award backstage. For me, I mean, it was just me filming it. It was no one else. It wasn't in front of the fans. It was just, let's film this. Let's give him an award. Let's get a fake Golga.
But I remember also that, again, it was the night before the fucking thing. And pay-per-views were on Sundays. This is a Saturday night. And we've driven down, can't remember the hotel, but it was somewhere near the arena. But we've driven down there from Connecticut already. I'm starving. And I told Dennis and Donnie B, I said, just hide out here as soon as I get out of this fucking meeting. We're going to Ribbit for a feeding frenzy. And and then something drug on and on and on. But finally, we got the ribs. Finally, it was a rib before we got the ribs.
You knew right away as soon as you walked in the room that something was up, right?
Well, yes, because it wasn't like the bellhop or the room service fellow or the representative of I think it was a Holiday Inn, now that I think about it. And so they were wearing uniforms. This guy just, some schlub brought a fucking giant tray of drinks in. And he looked like one of the people hanging around in the fucking lobby in the early days. It would all be guys in their 30s and 40s with backpacks and whatever, about a dozen of them that would hang out in the lobbies back in those days. And then this was in between the days of the rats and the days of the eBay autograph sellers. So there was only just some fucking guys that looked like they spent a lot of time outside in the humidity.
All right. Well, this has been Health News. Jim.
Yes.
As we move on here, a lot of listeners have sent over a photo. I'm assuming you saw it because it was everywhere. John Cena with a shaved head getting ready for a hair transplant surgery, and he's the one sharing it. He's not hiding from it. He's not embarrassed by it. He's letting the world know what he's doing. Says he wishes he had done it earlier in his career. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this?
Earlier? Hasn't he already had a hair enhancement of some description already?
I believe so, but he decided I need more. Obviously.
Well, but then he's saying it sounds like this is his first big, or did he just have he's had some kind of procedure done, so maybe it was just a temporary, or they spray painted and glued it on with Elmer's, and now he's going to make the whole plunge here. Why did he have to take a picture of himself with his head shaved? Did the clinic pay him to reveal this knowledge? And that's why he did it, because elsewise he's a goddamn multimillionaire and he can go and come as he pleases. When you just go home for about 6 or 8 weeks till everything grew in? Why is this being revealed?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. What motivated him to share this? Again, he's not embarrassed by it. He's talked about it before.
Well, he should be.
Should he?
You know where they get the hair that they plant in your head?
From your head.
No, it's from the asses of jackals and various jungle creatures and the crotches of monkeys, wherever they can find it. And you don't know what you're going to get.
I believe what we heard was they take it from one part of your head and then they transplant it hair by hair to another part of your head.
Well, but Cena hardly has any hair on his fucking body already, so it's slim pickings.
That's what I also didn't understand. It looked like he had some hair on the sides of his head, even though it was shaved down or crew cutted, whatever you want to say. But the top was completely bald. Once you have it done, well, I guess it would grow back if it was going to grow back. That's the whole process.
Well, yes, we got one of the emails from the listener said, no, they're actually planted. It's like grass. If you cut it, it'll grow back. So, but heavens, why just photograph yourself disfigured like that? Bald as an egg, slicker than a cue ball.
It's weird. It's always weird, I mean, Cena kind of pulls it off because he wasn't completely bald and the front had hair.
No. Here's the thing. In all honesty, all men used to look like shit with no hair until we got used to some guys with no hair like Telly Savalas, Steve Austin, and, whatever the fuck. And now it's not remarkable, but John looks like fucking Jim Varney to begin with the hair slicked back and with the little bald spot he had, but bald, he looks like fucking Opie Taylor with an acromegalic problem where his fucking features are developing in disproportionate speeds. Well, think about little Ronnie Howard. He's 8 years old, and suddenly he gets the ball that they're pitching, and Mayberry RFD hits him in the head, and it stimulates his pituitary gland, and he gets the giantism disease, acromegalic fucking tumor function, whatever, and then he looks like Rondo Hatton in The Creeper. That's kind of what Cena looks like, bald-headed.
It's weird. MJF, whatever he did, he was the one who kind of put it out there or allowed others in the company to put it out there that he had it done. You would think this is the kind of thing you disappear, you have done, and the hope is you kind of blend in, not that you appear like you had a thing glued to your head or something.
Yes.
But he put it out there, and he made it a central thing. He kind of made it something. I can't not focus on his hair now. Every time I see the guy, I'm like, how did they do that? What did they do? Where did they do it? But it's just weird that we now have people doing it and putting it out there. I don't know. It just
then seems... why do it? Because to me, it was always like, guys, Tony Schiavone, you show up on TV with gray hair, and then a year later or whatever, somebody suddenly they've got brown hair. What the fuck? They're aging in reverse? Is the Benjamin Button bullshit going on? If you've already, the idea is if you don't want them to know your hair is gray, don't let it go that far. Either start doing and keep it up, do the Bill Superstar Dundee plan, or for the first fucking 80 years of his life, nobody ever saw a gray hair on that man's head. Or don't. I prefer to be au natural, Brian, in all of my public appear. Even now, when I don't advertise myself out in public, I just go out and expose myself in public. I'm always au natural.
That may not be the way to phrase that.
Well, I don't augment myself in any way. I haven't had plastic surgery or coloring or chemicals. I'm out there, all natural, exposed in public.
Well, we will stay on top of whatever happens with John Cena. Hopefully his hair grows back in time for, when's the John Cena Classic? Didn't they announce that a few months ago?
They said, well, then now give us a lot of time because we got to figure out what it is.
Yeah, what the fuck happened? They announced that there was going to be a thing where NXT wrestlers and other wrestlers would wrestle, but the wins and losses wouldn't matter. And
Then they announced that they were going to do it probably by the end of the year, maybe around Christmas time, somewhere around in that, possibly first quarter, maybe. I don't know.
I haven't heard anything. Have you heard, seriously, have you heard anything about it?
That's what the only other thing that I ever heard about it was they said, oh, it probably might take place at the end of the year.
John, we're ready to do this. Okay, I think I got to go do my hair again.
I got to go shave my head, get ready for my hair transplant.
I'll post the evidence. I'm really going to go do something else. I can't do it right now. Well, we will, like I said before, stay on top of the John Cena hair news. And, of course, there won't be any hair in John Cena's ears, which is good because that means there won't be anything obstructing the wonderful sounds that he would get from his Raycon earbuds.
Oh, I see what you did there, and you did it much more quickly than normal. But, folks, I'll tell you one thing, though. They do have an extra feature. You can get the Raycon Everyday Earbuds Classic with all the features they've always had. The active noise cancellation so you can tune out distractions and focus on what you're listening to, whatever that may be. Or the multi-point connectivity, the ergonomic design, but also, if you've got extra long ear hair, they've got one pair of earbuds with a little crank. You can stick them in and just crank it, and it'll tie it around. So it's like an extra stability because you'll be tied into your ears with the ear hair. And then you just uncrank it when you want to untie it. Corey, you need to leave the ear hair growing for at least 18 months. But most people I've seen have no problem meeting that criteria. And folks, the Raycon Everyday Earbuds, also, they've got 32 hours of battery life. Boy, howdy, I'll tell you what. And for you ladies out there, well, you know what you can do with a couple of things with 32 hours of battery life. Just figure out someplace else to place them. I'm not allowed to say.
No, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to.
But then just put them on the vibrate function.
This is not.
And quick charge. And boy, howdy, they'll have what you're having. Get 2 pair, and it'll be a vivid video. The awareness mode, when you're out walking the dog, lets you be aware of where the dog is, or you actually would be able to see that. So take the earbuds out of your eyes and put them in your ears. Now that you can see, the awareness mode will let you hear what's happening around you. So as long as you're not going to be assaulted from behind by a street corner mime, you're going to be okay with the awareness mode on, folks. That's right. The Raycon Everyday Earbuds Classic are great to anywhere you want to go. And it's summertime now, and the ergonomic design prevents them from slipping out of your ear holes in the event of excessive sweating and perspiration, because they'll stay in there. Again, no matter if you've just taken, pour some baby oil in your ear and stick these things in.
Don't do that. Don't.
And listen, you will see that they won't even slip out.
You won't see anything. You won't hear anything. That's not a good idea. You can't
get these out with grease. Well, some of these cheaper quality earbuds that Raycon doesn't make, the other people make them. Well, you can pull them out quicker than a greasy string out of a cat's ass.
Once again, we're not focusing. We're not focusing on the competition.
Don't focus on the cat's ass, is what you're saying.
The wonderful earbuds from Raycon.
Stay away from the cat's ass.
Stay away from the cat's ass, and please, let's get back to the copy.
Let me tell you how you can save some money right now, folks. You can find out all about this stuff, and you can see that everything I'm saying is true, right down to the cat's ass. You go to buyraycon.com, BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com/JCE. You're going to get 20% off. And I know Father's Day has gone by and Mother's Day has gone by, but Son's Day is coming up, and there's a lot of sons of bitches out there. So get your son or a son of a bitch. That'll cover almost everybody. A set of earbuds, Everyday Earbuds Classics, buyraycon.com/JCE for 20% off. That's literally, and that's each earbud. It's not like 20% off one. You get 20% off the pair. You don't have to buy them separately, unless, of course, again, we don't want to offend our
Oh my God.
Our fans in the audience who may only have one ear.
They come in pairs. No matter how many ears you have, they come in pairs.
Well, it just seems a waste. Write in, folks. BuyRaycon.com/JC.
Right
20% off. And if you have the situation in your life where you only have one ear or one ear hole, and you want to see if you can save some money, write to the folks at BuyRaycon.com and see if they can give you a break on something.
This is not an idea that we endorse, but what we do endorse are the wonderful earbuds that me and my family love, that Stacey Cornette loves, and we think you will love too. One more time, Jim, that link and that wonderful promo code.
BuyRaycon.com/JCE.
And there it is. Jim, why don't we finish?
I got something here. I got something I just want to bring up real quick. Okay. I just thought this deserves some attention here. You're Christopher Esparza down in Austin, Texas, has been doing a lot of research on the history of wrestling in Austin, and he's going all the way back to the late 1800s. And he sent just a short clipping. You know, he used to hit me with the in the news thing. This is wrestling in the news from way back. This may be the oldest wrestling in the news that we've ever heard news of. Would you like to hear what this is?
Yeah.
From the 1880s. And this was in the, what does it say? Whatever the Fort Smith the Cherokee Indian Leader is the newspaper in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And Chris writes, I think I may have found one of the greatest examples of burying the lead in newspaper history. The headline is Result of a Wrestling Match. Naturally, I figured I'd found another obscure wrestling result from my Austin wrestling research. Instead, the article casually informs the reader that the loser apparently got so upset about the match that he murdered his opponent a week later.
Oh, wow.
That's one way to report a homicide, result of a wrestling match. Oh, by the way, there was also a murder. So here's the clipping.
You think it was a work?
Apparently not. Fort Smith, Arkansas, April 16. I don't have a year here, but Chris, 1880s. Another Indian Territory murder is reported at the United States Marshal's Office today. It is the killing of a Cherokee Indian named Leader by James Upton, a white man near McAlester, Oklahoma. Upton and Leader had a wrestling match last week, and Upton, having been downed, became angry and provoked a quarrel with Leader, which resulted in his death. So, and I mean, again, that's back in the days of the Indian Territory. I'm not sure if you got full penalty or it was like, did you get a 20% off code because it was only an Indian? But yeah, they had a wrestling match and the guy lost and said, well, fuck it. Yeah, so we've come a long way in civilizing the business, Brian.
Where's Fort Smith in Arkansas? Is that Watts territory or Jarrett territory?
But no, it was closer to Watts territory than Jarrett territory, but Watts didn't, for whatever reason, at least while we were there, Fort Smith didn't get, maybe, was it a spot show or am I even thinking of another fort? They didn't run Fort Smith, but it's on the border with Oklahoma but up in the northeastern fucking corner, etc. It all looks the same out there. You can't really tell when you get from one state to another.
All right. Well, this has been Austin, Texas history. Actually, not Austin, Texas. Now. He's from Austin. He's doing Austin research.
He's from Austin, yes. Third base.
Well, this has been 1880s. This is we're having a great show here today, ladies and gentlemen.
Did I mention thank you, Charlie from Starkville, for the puppy toys? Did I mention that?
You certainly did. Jim, let me get your thoughts on this.
All right.
News came out this past weekend that Sheamus was preparing to leave WWE. He's been there for 20 years. I have a quote here from the Fightful In the Weed show. It should be reiterated.
Now, wait a minute. Fightful's on weed? What is that?
I guess Fightful has a show called In the Weeds, and that would be their show, In the Weeds.
Oh.
It should be reiterated that Sheamus turned down a contract extension, and he was not released. Once he's done, he's out. There will be no 90-day non-compete. There will be just Stephen Farrelly, that's his real name, professional wrestler and workout artist, doing whatever he wants once that contract
workout artist? What is that?
I guess that means he likes to lift weights and film himself doing it. I think that's.
Are you serious, or is that
I'm being serious.
Out your ass guess?
I mean, both, but I think that's what it is.
Good luck with that fucking line of work.
He will do whatever he wants once his contract ends, which we do not specifically know the date of the expiration. He has been
who is writing this? This sounds like an odd person to begin. He will do whatever he wants. Like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go out and knock over a fucking bank. I'm going to get shit-faced drunk, maybe snort a few lines, go to a rock show. What? Like he's been held captive? When's the last time you saw this son of a bitch? Have we seen him?
I'm starting to think this may have been transcribed from a podcast, not something written. Sheamus has been moved to the WWE alumni section. And then here's another quote. He swiftly rejected WWE when he was approached about a restructured contract while he was out with an injury. And we're told that WWE contract was set to expire within months of that happening anyway, and there wasn't a purpose for an imminent release or waiting out the 90 days. They also noted, this is from The Observer covering this, they also noted that something had changed in Sheamus' status because his original deal wasn't supposed to expire until 2029. It is said that he signed a 5-year deal in 2024, and obviously there's only 2 years left, it says here, according to Fightful.
Well, okay. I mean, all these things can be correct. Maybe it was a 3-year deal with a 2-year option or 2 option years or whatever, that the whole thing covered 5 years and the relationship was rosy at that point. So it was just spoken of in those glowing terms from that halcyon period as a 5-year deal. Something, it's not. Again, they just said they didn't cut him, they didn't release him. So it's not like they said, okay, we're just going to take time off your contract. So I think that's probably what it was. And if he's been there 20 years and we haven't seen him in quite a while, and he's hurt, and I would assume if he's been there 20 years, he's 45 years old at minimum. Would I be correct in that? Maybe you can.
I'll find that right now.
Find the magic Google machine. But if they're looking at, again, a 45-year-old guy who has somewhat of a name and recognition, yes, but he's never, at least since we've been watching this show, been one of the major players you want to see on the goddamn bus. Sheamus isn't a bus face. And he's 45 and he's been injured and he's not working or going to work anywhere near as often as he has in the past. I think, yeah, they'd go to a guy like that and say, hey, look, we'll guarantee you half as much or whatever the fucking restructuring is, but you're also going to work half as much or, whatever the case may be. And I can also see that guy saying, I've worked for these people for 20 years and I'm not an idiot or a fucking, spendthrift. So I've got fuck you money. So I don't want them to cut my deal. I may just not want to do this anymore. Or maybe I'll just goddamn do it every once in a while or whatever. I can see that too. So I think all of these things can be true. I'll let you jump in here, but I don't think he's thinking, oh God, now I get to go to AEW and wrestle the Buckaroos. I don't think that's a thing. I think it's like, I don't want to take your deal, pals.
Well, maybe I want to go to AEW and wrestle with Claudio. I mean, we really don't know. Sheamus is 48 years old. I didn't realize he was that
Good
old.
Lord. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that took me by surprise too. And again, he's choosing to leave. We've heard about them trying to restructure deals and cut people's salary. That's really what it is, the pay cut. Doing it when the guy's injured is kind of fucked up too, isn't it?
Well, actually, it's more fucked up to me to cut a guy's pay when he's injured than to when a guy's contract is up, you offer him one and he turns it down. Okay, kind of my hands are clean now because his deal was going to be up at that time period anyway. And it was him that chose not to take one at all. That doesn't mean that he's automatically going to get started handing his doctor's bills and his rehab fees and whatever. They're still, I'm sure, going to cover that. And again, this is not, I don't know what fucking world a lot of people live in when they think that if a guy that's worked for the WWE for 20 years straight cannot take a year or two off if he just wants to sit on the pouch and pet his dog financially, then he's a fucking idiot. That's all I've got to say. So it's not like we need to start a GoFundMe. What the fuck is everybody? This is not a poor indie wrestler that broke his coccyx or his fucking uvula and doesn't know how his next meal is going to get delivered to him.
Just makes you wonder about where we are. If it's now a pattern approaching veterans specifically about cutting their salary. You're kind of screwing over people who you signed to a deal who have very limited other options. A lot of people think the New Day are going to go to AEW, and I'm sure that's probably what will happen. Sheamus, who can't be Sheamus again, they own that name. If he's going to wrestle, he's going to go to AEW because there's nowhere else to go. And he'll look like a fucking giant there amongst those people. But they're not, that we've heard at least stories about going to the younger wrestlers to restructure. They're going to the older guys who, if not at the end of their career, they're approaching it. And they have to start figuring out what they're going to do next, in or outside of wrestling. That's where it's kind of fucked up. You committed to the contract. I know WWE could always get out of their own contracts, but it seems pretty fucked up. I'm glad Sheamus is putting his foot down.
But no, here's the thing, is that, okay, everybody, all the fans that have read about the old territory days on the internet, they all condemn, you were just a broken down horse to the promoters, and when when you outlived your usefulness, they'd shoot you or whatever. Okay, that was when you were 48 years old and you had spent the last 3 or 4 years, maybe getting 3 or 4 months in this territory and then a different one and whatever, because you were old and you couldn't move and younger guys had taken your place, and the guys that were booking you were doing it as a favor because of your past glory. And instead, this guy's had a goddamn 6-figure job for 20 years straight. He's almost 50. He's been a professional athlete. He's friends with Triple H. If he wanted to be involved in the fucking, I'm not saying creative, that's not for everybody, but in the production end or the agent end or producer or training guest at the goddamn rec center down there, whatever the fuck, he could do that. And he might just want to fucking retire. I didn't really ever get Sheamus as more than an oddly visually off-putting fellow to begin with. There was not anything particularly outstanding in my eyes about him, but he's had a wonderfully successful career. And if he went to AEW, the fans would shit on him because he's not going to goddamn dive, nor I would hope is going to fucking drink anybody's blood or be blown up by explosives. And he would look like the amazing colossal beast next to the rest of the roster. And just to take a billionaire's money, for another few $1 million and separate himself even further from the office, because after the initial part wears off where he said, I ain't gonna take your offer, I'll do what I want, respect my authority. Once he starts talking to Hunter again or whatever, he's gonna want to still be involved in that, because then he can get in a quicker fashion, if he wants it, a job in production or a guest trainer every once in a while, or the Legends deal where he gets the merchandise and blah, blah, blah. He's not a major name that Tony Khan would have to sign for millions and millions of dollars that would make it worth upsetting that relationship. I yield the floor.
I think Sheamus is a major name, because I think if you're someone who's dropped into wrestling at any point in the last 20 years, he's been there and he's noticeable. But again, they can't use the name Sheamus. What do they call him?
Yeah,
even if you sign him, what do you call him? Big Red?
That's what I'm saying, is that besides the name thing, it's just the idea that Tony, you could understand sometimes when he paid guys a few $1 million, but for Sheamus would have. Does anybody think Sheamus would have any effect on his business?
No, probably
I don't
not.
think he's one of the highest paid guys in the company, because you'd have to. If Punk, yes, was. Jericho at the time he signed him, yes, was. The Buckaroos weren't, worth two tits and a fucking whistle. But you can't make a case that Sheamus would affect their business in any market way enough to pay him millions of dollars. And why would he want to go over there and work for fucking hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Well, I'm not going to presume that Tony's going to underpay him. I don't think that's a fair assumption ever with Tony Khan. He's going to underpay someone. I think, to your earlier point, I agree. Sheamus won't, in any meaningful way, help or hurt either company by being on their roster. He's, I hate to use the term, a good hand, but I guess he's a solid hand to have on the show, but it's not like...
You can use the term a good solid hand.
Adding him against Moxley isn't going to, boost a pay-per-view.
Oh, Christ.
For example, just to give an example.
Yeah.
And MJF and Sheamus, I don't know, again, he's not Sheamus anymore. He's Steven. I don't know how that's going to work.
He could just go as Shame.
Shame.
Yes. And then every time he leaves the ring, he could be trailed by a little kid going, "Come back, Shame. Shame, come back."
Well, we will stay on top of this story and see what else happens there. Jim, I want to get your thoughts on another John Cena thing. Several people sent this in. Let me click this one. I have an article from the Wrestling Observer newsletter website, which has quotes from a John Cena interview, I believe with an NPR show, Wild Card, talking about when he almost made a deal with a social media network without informing Vince McMahon. And listeners sent this over. It appears the thought is they want to get your thoughts on how
many people are thinking about this now. Their thought is that my thoughts are different from their thoughts.
About the way John Cena speaks about and treats Vince McMahon. But let me get the quote here.
Okay.
"One time, I tried to get involved with an entrepreneurial social network startup. And I didn't tell my boss. And we talk about everything. This wasn't like, man, we're going to do this together. In potentially being a part of the startup, my name's John Cena. So I would essentially be leveraging intellectual property. That's a team's decision. I love and trust my boss. He's far more than my boss. I was just trying to get money, simply. I have my own philosophy on social networks. Some very limited in my use by design."
Is this just AI now just telling everybody what everybody said?
Unfortunately, this is how John Cena speaks. "So it's not something I'm interested in. Not too fond of limited access stuff. This was a curated idea that seemed nice, but I looked at the projections."
He could have told us exactly what the goddamn pitch was that he agreed to begin with in less time than this.
"My boss found out. And to be honest, he was great. He walked me through it. Like, okay, This is the choice you've made. Let's walk through all the tentacles of what might happen. In a moment, it was a direct violation of trust to somebody I had worked for years. He invested years in trusting me too. It was a moment where he could have just gone nuclear, because trust takes years to build and moments to destroy. He didn't. He had patience, tolerance, and I think possibly, as an entrepreneur himself, he tried to put himself in my shoes and walk through it. It took 5 minutes or less to realize I'm such an idiot. I immediately called the company back and said, I'm out. This isn't for me. So that's the quote, and we've heard John Cena.
And who was he speaking to when he was telling this story?
It's a podcast apparently called Wild Card.
So it's not like just a wrestling-oriented podcast. It's because Cena's a celebrity also that he's on his thing.
He doesn't really do wrestling podcasts.
Well, okay, that's why I'm saying he's speaking in, because it sounds stilted when he kept saying, my boss. Like anybody wouldn't know he was talking about Vince, but that's what he is. The Hollywood folks have trained him to do, is to not speak like everybody knows everything involved in wrestling. So the glowingness that he is speaking, when he's saying, my boss, if it was in a wrestling audience, he would be saying Vince. He wouldn't be like putting him up on a pedestal like Mother Teresa in that respect. But it's an interesting way that he has of describing what I think we've talked about, or I've told you before, is Vince's Jedi mind tricks. Where, remember when we talked me into half the Smoky Mountain roster out of doing the Jerry Springer show, where we were going to shoot our own angle that they didn't know about, because goddamn, they wanted us to fucking the gangsters and the Southern boy Tracy Smothers. They wanted us to be fucking racial, and we wanted to be wrestling. But Vince heard about it from Undertaker and called me on the phone, and within 10 minutes, oh no, I don't want to fucking do that. He would bring you in when he had heard something that he didn't want somebody to do. He would bring them in, and within 10 or 15 minutes tops, usually not even that much, you would leave the room. They go, oh, what the fuck? I don't want to do that shit. And you didn't even realize how he did it.
To this story, though, and John Cena's always spoken of Vince. I mean, he did an interview where he said he loved him. And obviously they had a very close relationship. He says here we used to talk about everything, which does make you wonder what else he knows.
Well, now, come on. Now, he didn't know what everything entailed when he was talking about that.
I'm not going to presume one way or another that he knows anything or doesn't. But the subservience, the idea that it sounds like John Cena, the human being, saw potential to make an investment. And yeah, if you're a businessman and you own a piece of it, people may know that. The idea that because it would be using the name John Cena, and that would somehow violate intellectual property of WWE, so Vince had him not do it. And this is probably around the same time he bought Tout, or whatever that failed thing was. But what does that tell you? I mean, just the idea... You know, I'm not saying this is Sergeant Slaughter going to G.I. Joe or Jesse Ventura going to Sega.
No, but Vince would have crafted all of the ways why that if you didn't do that, but you stuck with this because we're going to be doing something like this, and I'm going to end up making you more money, John Cena, with what we're going to be doing here than you would. Don't fuck with these people, because it'll screw something up. And that's the short version, not as smooth. And guys bought it, and many times it came true. Many times also, I'm sure it didn't.
But the violation of trust comment, the idea that him trying to do a deal was a violation of trust with Vince.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes. You've got to get a little shame. Shame on you. He's the, Aunt Vince. Shame on you, Johnny. I thought you were only going to eat my apple pie.
Well, we'll see.
There's got to be a little shame in there to it. So, you get the point across.
John Cena seems like a truly nice guy, and his Make-A-Wish stuff is so commendable. And we see the bullshit factory that is Dwayne Johnson in the public eye. And he's not that. Yet, not that there's something fake, there's something very rehearsed.
Well, he's learned to be smoother and more measured and calculated in what he does or says, since he is a celebrity in multiple fields and people are paying attention to what's going on, and there's always going to be a bad picture or a fucking goofy whatever. So he's not just, I'm the real John Cena all the time, but he has, I can understand in his position with, again, multiple fucking fields of endeavor, why that he'd have to kind of be careful about talking nicely about everybody for the most part.
Well, that's the John Cena, whatever this business deal was that Vince McMahon killed and made John Cena feel good about. We'll never know. Jim, we will be right back after this short commercial timeout. All right, making up chords today, folks. We're back.
You're going to wake up the boys again. I've got a question for you. I've got some news from your part of the world up there. Do you know where 235 East 42nd Street in Midtown Manhattan is?
I have an approximate idea where it would be. Yes, of course.
Well, it might not be there long. Apparently, the building at 235 East 42nd Street is being evacuated, and they're shutting fucking parts of the goddamn city down because the building is collapsing.
Oh, yeah. No, I've been seeing this, and it's not just that building, but they've had to evacuate the surrounding skyscrapers because if anything happens to that building, it'll affect all those buildings as well, obviously.
And they're apparently converting this from it was the Pfizer building, and now it's being converted to residences, but they have discovered that structural beams are caving in support beams. And the 21st through 26th floors of the building are starting to cave under the stress.
How many floors is the building, did they say?
I'm trying to, I said I've zipped through this. I think it's 37-story commercial building. One of the largest office to apartment conversion projects in city history, apparently, is not going to go. How the fuck would you fix all that?
I don't think you can. If all of a sudden there's structural damage to the column, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know anything about this, to be honest with you.
No, there's pictures of these metal support beams, apparently, that they have revealed as they're taking walls out to do the renovation, and they're just cracking in the middle it's like a bent knee. And the fear officials said is a partial collapse, which could be internal. A full collapse onto the street is less likely.
How old is the building? Does it say?
Again, I'm sorry, there's so much extraneous bullshit on this, but it did have 7 violations between July and December 2025, resulting in more than $32,000 in fines levied. I'm not seeing how old the building is, but
any of the violations to the foundation or anything like this?
Well, no, the foundation's fine. It's just what's on top of it that's fallen into the goddamn hole. So that's why I don't trust those. I never liked New York because I go up in that building and I go, human beings are fucking morons and they made this. I don't trust it. So don't go, ladies and gentlemen, 235 East 42nd Street or wherever
just stay at a Manhattan
building there ends up.
Just stay at a Manhattan. It may take a while to get cleaned up.
Yeah.
What a mess. Well, speaking of a
mess.
Actually, we're not going to speak of a mess. Speaking of transitions out of nowhere, ladies and gentlemen, wild card. Let's talk about WWE Raw, because last night, as we are recording, they had a pretty big episode. It built. It was one of those episodes that started somewhere and you had to kind of stay involved to see where it was going to go.
And it actually went somewhere.
And a big payoff at the end. Let's talk about Raw in Chicago.
And, this, again, it wasn't a stressful thing to watch as normal. There was certain things that I scanned through, but overall I felt satisfied when I got finished with the thing. And this did go all through the night as a setup. So let's stick with the main thread. What do you think, Brian, chronologically? Then we can come back and jump into other people's shit. What do you think?
Well, why don't we talk about the road to the main event? Yeah.
The road, see, the road to the main event was roads until that road was closed. And then a new alleyway opened up. Punk Alley. They had video of Sami winning the triple threat match for the title, and then video of last Friday night on SmackDown. Cody beat Jay to get a return shot at the title that he lost to Sami. And they're in Chicago at the former Rosemont Horizon. What do they call it these days? They said it, but I can't remember. The hell. You've lost it too, haven't you?
I liked Rosemont Horizon.
Well, yes, because that was new and different and unique and whatever. This was, this is named after an insurance company, the Geico Arena or something.
How exciting.
So nevertheless, they're in Chicago, 12,458 people there. And in the back, Sami sees Cody. And they're talking, and Sami's telling Cody, hey, I'm going to win tonight. And all of a sudden, Gunther comes in, boom, 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 and power bombs Cody through a table. And then kicks his head, or kicks a car door closed on his fucking head. And he's bleeding from the ear as Cody. And Gunther tells Sami, now you just got to worry about me. But in the meantime, now they've set up, my God, it's supposed to be Cody and Sami in the main event, and Cody's back with the doctor. And I wonder if that guy really has a degree that they show on television. Would you let him treat you?
Man, one time Greg Greenland was hanging out, and they said, hey, you could be a doctor. It was like in the 90s, and I forget who it was. Someone got like destroyed, and he was like checking their pulse.
I'm not sure, Greg. You'd have to know Greg Greenland, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, we've set that up, and if I wonder if he charged for the pulse.
Hey, what a great job! What a great job by Cody selling after the car door spot.
Yes,
it was great.
But now we don't know what's going to happen, and now at the same time. Aldis and Adam Pearce are at each other. They're arguing because Aldis is telling Pearce, it's your fault that Cody, you can't manage your show. That's why Cody's hurt. And Pearce has had all of Aldis's gravy that he wants on his plate, right? So they're yelling at each other all night. And the doctor is he's still trying to make a decision later on in the program. Am I going to clear Cody or not? And Pearce is like, oh, shit. And so they built some fucking tension. And they had some other things, as I said, going on that kept your attention as well. But this was the show-long deal of, what's going to happen. And you could tell that the people were kind of in on it because whenever they got the chance, they'd break out into a CM Punk chant.
Well, as soon as the story was, we're in Chicago and we need a main event, it was clear what it was going to be. And if it wasn't that, there would have been a problem.
And Pearce is on the phone like, oh, I got to get a hold of the guy, whatever. So they knew. But again, they not only knew, but they were obviously happy about it and wanting to see it. That's the secret here. You can't just, they'll never think we're going to do this and then do it. And people go, what the fuck? I didn't think they'd do that because it didn't make any sense. But anyhow, finally the time for the main event, and they gave it plenty of time. Sami started to the ring about a half hour left in the show. And he made his entrance and we had the long milk. And that gave him a chance to chant CM Punk some more. And then one of the back doors of the arena, the big garage door, opens and slowly reveals Punk, who, again, I guess he was exiled to dressing with the goddamn Boar Horseman, because where the fuck did he come from?
Yeah.
Did he walk? I've been to that building. It's not like it's a residential neighborhood right around it. Did he walk across the street from the fucking Hyatt dressed like that?
Yeah, is the idea they called him up at home in Chicago, like, hey, we need a main event, get here quick. And he's like, all right, I'll put my gear on now. And then he jumped on his bicycle. He went to the arena and they just happened to open the giant door and he's just standing there waiting.
So it was a nice reveal, but and again, it's goddamn. It's just the ramp. He did he dress in his fucking car? All right, but I've got to knock what I can knock because the rest of it works. But he walked straight through the back. They did the long follow with the camera and everything to the gorilla position, and suddenly we hear it again. Like Mussolini, it's the cult of meat with extra cheese.
Wow, you're trying not to wake up the dogs. I've never heard you do this so subdued.
Well, it could come back to haunt me if they start howling. I can't. Those are backup singers. I can't get to shut up. Anyway, out comes Punk and people are going crazy, and it's clobbering time and a big entrance and lots of milk. I mean, it was utterly milked all the way to the bone. And the people are into it. And the WWE title, Sami and Punk. And it's made already, and they're fucking on fire. So they actually had, I know this will surprise some people, a wrestling match. This was a good match. And without doing a blow by blow, the point is, if they did something that we normally criticize, when they traded punches and forearms, they actually threw ones that looked good, and then they sold and reacted to them when they landed. It doesn't have to just be stand there and look stupid. And both these guys can work, and their shit looks good, but they were serious about it. They didn't bury the referee. They didn't use any furniture. There was no bullshit on the floor forever. It was a serious main event world title match. And when they went into the false finishes, they all worked. Punk got the elbow off the top and got a 2 count. But then he got the Anaconda Vice and the fans were going crazy, but Sami broke out of it. And they did more punches on their knees, but they were trying. They were exhibiting some effort at making each thing look good, not just going through the motions so they could do the next stunt with an improvised explosive device or a goddamn, lighter fluid enema. I don't know what they're doing over there. And then they started hitting each other's finish. Sami hit a go to sleep and got a big pop on a 2 count. They're with Punk, obviously. But they don't hate Sami like he's, fucking Heyman or something. So they're just into this. And then Punk foiled the kick and went for a kick. But Sami got another GTS and hit the Blue Thunder and got a 2 count. And the place is rocking with the CM Punk chants. And they get into another slugfest. And then Punk hit the knee and sidestepped a kick. And he hit the haluva kick. And then hit the GTS. 1, 2, 3. It was a great match and a great finish to it because it got the people up. And then it hit them and it paid off in a way that they could blow on rather than them see it coming a mile away because they're all down in a goddamn chin lock for 45 seconds beforehand, immobile. Or just something out of nowhere because they'd run out of shit to do. It built to the end. So if anybody wonders what we're talking about when we say you don't have to do all that stupid shit to have a good wrestling match, there's one. Watch that. But maybe it's just, am I being too kind because it just looks so much better than The shit we've been looking at lately.
I thought it was excellent. I thought it was an excellent main event. One of the better Raws in a long time. The way Punk took the GTS from Sami, he would lower his head a little bit so that Sami's knee would connect with his face, and it looked good. You know, Sami Zayn really is just a special in-ring talent. You know, the near falls and the things at the end, what separate the men from the boys in an era where everyone kicks out of everything and there's near falls in every match, or the way you react.
Yeah.
Or what your face looks like. And so many people do the overreaction to near falls or whatever it is, but Sami Zayn, it's amazing that this guy didn't want to take off his fucking mask because he is so good at the little things in there. And I thought CM Punk looked great. We haven't seen him in a while. There are lots of rumors that him and WWE were mad at each other. They wanted to cut his salary. There's lots
That's
of
why
heat.
he came back and won a title.
So obviously they put the belt on him. That's that's what they do.
Fuck it.
We'll talk a little bit more in a second or two about where they go next. But any other thoughts about this main event?
Well, yeah, with Sami, and there's another thing. As El Generico in Ring of Honor, he used to do this. A brain buster on the turnbuckle where he would start out looking like he was going to superplex a guy, but pick him up. And yes, it was Ring of Honor. The guys weren't that big, but still just a human being. He's standing on the middle rope. He picks the guy up for a suplex and it drops him on the top turnbuckle in a brain buster. And then the guy hopefully bumps into the ring. And of course, that's one of those things I didn't want him to fucking do. But we weren't paying him enough money to listen back in those days. Now you don't see him do it because they obviously said a long time ago up there, what the fuck, are you out of your mind? But the point was, his body looks like shit, but he shouldn't be that strong, but he is. And he shouldn't be that necessarily agile or coordinated with the springboards and the things, but he is. He's an overachiever in terms of his visual look. And yes, sometimes, as we've said, cosmetics are important in this business, especially today with the precedent that has been set. But there can be exceptions if something else is outrageously out of balance to the positive. And he's one of those guys. He doesn't look like he should be able to do that shit, but he can. And that's, again, one of the reasons I was frustrated. They didn't need to use the goddamn ladders and tables and all the indie shit that him and Steen used to do in those garbage matches, because he could work and he could fucking sell. He's an exceptional seller as a babyface. So it took a long time to wean them off of that shit. But anyway, that's the thing with Sami. He looks like shit, but everything else is there.
His body may look like shit, but his body language is always perfect. He's always like in the right place. He's always doing just all the small things that matter. He nails. Great main event. Again, we'll talk shortly about where they go next. But Jim, after a night like that, CM Punk having to get dressed, get on his bicycle, ride to the arena as fast as he can, knock on the door for them to open the door for him to walk in. That's a lot of work. You know, it's a
lot of work.
It's a long bike ride. Perhaps when he goes home, he needs a good night's sleep. And of course, for a good night's sleep, you need the right mattress like the ones from our good friends at Helix Sleep.
Well, that's right. You can't just lay down and go to sleep anywhere. And like Mr. Hughes, Curtis Hughes, he used to do that wherever he might be because he had narcolepsy or whatever. And he would just nod off, or he would heel in on the couch in the lobby of a hotel when he was bodyguarding Lex Luger, and they thought he was a real bodyguard. But see, if Helix had been around with Mr. Hughes, then they would have done a sponsorship deal with him, because a man that can fall asleep anywhere, they should have just strapped a Helix sleep mattress to his back and let him walk around and just sleep in various public places. It would have attracted attention, brought more brand awareness. Can't you? Helix with Hughes. That's what they could have called it.
It would have been a revolutionary
Would you like to see
campaign.
people with mattresses strapped to their back walking down and say, oh, I forgot you live in New York. You see that all the time. But they're charging for different things than the mattresses.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking
folks,
about in-home use, and we're talking about in-home mattresses that weigh a lot. You don't want to carry them around. You want to place them down and place yourself down onto the mattress for a good night's sleep.
Oh, yes. Just lay yourself right down there and just watch your wallet, because you never know when you stand back up again. But not with the Helix mattress, folks. That's not what they're doing. What they're doing is you want a Helix mattress to go to sleep on after you finish doing the other stuff on the other mattress. That way you don't mix bodily fluids. Helix is very safe about that. They always say there's a rule about the Helix mattresses. They don't want you fucking on them for the first 100 days.
They don't make that rule. Let's not scare people by saying things like that.
Well, no, don't, because then you can still send it back. You could still send it back. They've got the risk-free. It's 120 days, as a matter of fact, or nights, wherever you feel like fucking, daytime, nighttime. But don't fuck on it for 120 nights, because you can send it back if you don't like it. And it just wouldn't be right to send it back all splooged on. Think of the people at Helix that have to open that package back up. Do you want your splooge all over their hands?
Again,
I ask you.
Let's not ask, man. Let's not focus on the returns. Let's focus on.
Well, you can if you want to, but who would want to?
You've established that, but we're going to have it in our
homes. Who would want to return it?
That's right.
That's right. Who would want to return such a thing when you could sleep on it?
There you go.
Because, folks, Helix has over 20 mattress models, and that's actually models of mattresses. They're not mattress models. The girls in the pictures, they won't come with the mattress. They're separate. You have to order them from a different location. But they got over 20 kinds of mattresses, so you can find the perfect mattress for you, whether you like to sleep on your back or your side, or if you like to sleep on your neck. A lot of people just roll right up and just stick their head in the ground. A lot of people with their heads in the ground lately. You can get a mattress for that too at Helix, because they want to please the customer. And like I said, the 120-night sleep trial, the limited lifetime warranty, free shipping, seamless delivery. They'll grease it up and slide it. You open the front door and they will bowl it in, and it will slide because it's got Crisco on the bottom of it. It'll slide right into the bedroom.
It doesn't have Crisco on the bottom of it.
Seamless delivery.
It's a box, and the box needs to be lifted, and once you place it down and cut it open, the Helix sleep mattress will unfurl in front of your very eyes.
Don't cut too deep, or you might be surprised. But anything that comes out of a box is over, and that phrase was coined for a Helix mattress. And it'll come to your door, and then it'll come out of its box, and it'll be over with you. And folks, right now you can save money until July the 12th, as a matter of fact. This is what the discount is until July 12th. You're running out of time. If you don't get it now, you might never get it. So just get it as soon as you can. 20% off site-wide, 20% off the Luxe Collection mattresses, and 30% off the Elite Collection mattresses. And that's all at helixsleep.com/JCE. That's the code to get all those discounts I just talked about. HELIX. Just like Felix the cat, but with an H instead of an F. And then it's not a cat, it's a mattress. And the mattress it doesn't have any cat fur in it.
Right, get the F out.
We talked about goose eggs the other day and duck eggs, which, eggs hatch. It's biology, but we're going to try to stay away from those. Yes. We're going back to helixsleep.com/JCE, the best dadgum mattress and the cleanest and the freest of splooge and or duck eggs that you're ever going to get. And you can save money until July the 12th, 20% off site-wide, 25% off the Luxe mattresses, 30% off the Elites, just for you.
Once again, a mattress loved in this household, in the Cornette household, and all around this country of ours.
Matter of fact, we quit sleeping on them. We just put one of those velvet ropes around it now, and we charge people in the neighborhood $0.25 to come in and look at it.
Okay, let's, once again, for those of you with normal sleeping patterns and sleeping rooms, helixsleep.com/JCE. All right, well, Jim.
Yes.
Coming out of that main event, where the hell are they going to go next? Is it going to be a four-way match at SummerSlam? Is it going to be Cody versus Punk? Or does Cody have to go after Gunther? What's Sami going to do?
No, they're right where they need to be. They've got a reason. Cody is pissed off because it should have been his title shot. But instead, because of what Gunther did, they bring Punk in. He's mad at Punk for taking advantage of the situation. Punk can say, well, what'd you expect me to do? Fucking, you couldn't do it, so I did. Cody and Punk in a single match. They're not going to clutter the thing up the first time around with being multiple people. That would take away the attention for the whole thing. Cody Rhodes challenging for the belt that he lost under questionable circumstances with Sami, and Punk just happens to be the guy. And Gunther and Sami could have their elimination showdown. But they got to have a single match, just Rhodes Punk. That's all they got to fucking have on top for at least one of the nights at SummerSlam.
Well, we shall see. Jim, what else did you watch on Raw?
Well, there was actually things to watch. A couple of things I kind of wish I'd have zipped through by the time I finished with it. But the opening segment past Cody being injured and setting up that story was here comes Seth Franklin Rollins. So, okay, we'll see what he's got to say. As soon as he gets in the ring, the people chant CM Punk. And then he mentioned Roman Reigns, and they chanted OTC. He said Roman wasn't there because the check wasn't big enough. Again, I don't know how people keep cheering for Roman and the Usos, except they know it's all bullshit and they don't care whether anybody cheats or not or is a prick, whatever. But this was a long one. And Seth's story was that Roman was always the chosen one, even if he couldn't wrestle or, and I quote, cut a promo. That's what I was talking about earlier with Cena when he's on real world programs or media or whatever. He speaks where normal humans would be able to understand him. Even wrestling fans from 25 or 30 years ago or whatever the cutoff was didn't say cut a promo, said do an interview. Cut a promo is business lingo. That's the way the promoters used to. They'd stop tape sometimes if they could, or they'd tell you afterwards, or they'd beat into your head, don't say business, say sport. Don't say dressing room, say locker room. Don't use inside terms because it will confuse people and or potentially give them too much valuable information they don't need to have. But now that the only audience is the people who live and die with these soliloquies, I guess it doesn't matter. But Seth said, I see the 9-year-old boy. Actually, he said, I see a boy. How old are you? 8 or 9? And they yelled back, he's 4. Like, what is he, a goddamn giant? Fucking freak child to Chernobyl Cherub Jr.?
I like when he yelled at, how old is that boy? 5, 6, 7, 8, and then they go 9. It's like, oh, the only one he didn't guess.
Oh, yeah. It's like they're way off their fucking. He couldn't guess your weight at the county fair, Seth. Anyway, I was that boy, and it's this again. All I ever wanted was to main event WrestleMania. And Roman got it, handed to it. He was the chosen one, and handing it, my dream off to someone else. This is a quote, broke something in me. God damn it, I miss when wrestlers didn't have feelings and emotions. It was so much more fun to listen to them. It was so long and dramatic. And I wrote, can somebody just come out here and do a fucking promo off the top of their head that makes me want to see them fight somebody? So he did about 10 minutes on needing to prove to his 5-year-old self that he's going to beat Roman or whatever the fuck. And then LA Knight's music played. I'm like, Jesus, more. And at least he picks it up a little bit. He's got some fucking oomph to him. He kept it moving. It was entertaining, but he should have been out 5 minutes earlier. And he's tired of being cut off by the bloodline and the vision. He's been held down too long. He's actually having to do promos now on that everybody's complaining about the booking buries him. So I gathered that, and also I gathered that all the baby faces in today's wrestling hate each other. And I don't know why any of them trust the other ones. I mean, it used to be automatic. You knew that no matter what the heels did, all the baby faces out of the locker room were going to come in and try to make it even and keep somebody from being hurt by some vicious assault. And that's like, fuck, they're all jealous of each other. And Seth responded to LA Knight, I don't like you, but I respect you. Well, I really want to see you fight somebody you don't necessarily like, but you really respect. But he'll be the first person that Seth puts in the dirt. Because you can't say, like, I'm going to kill you, because that's attempted murder. So he wants to bury LA Knight alive. And then as Seth was leaving, Jimmy Uso came in the ring, another one of these smiley young white meat baby faces, and he fucking leveled LA Knight with a super kick and walked off and left him. So we had 20 minutes there to fucking end up with one super kick.
Rollins went a while. Even when I want to give him a chance, you start listening to what he's saying, it always feels like it's the wrong thing. Thank God LA Knight came out there. And the fans clearly want LA Knight to be elevated, but they've wanted that for years, and it's just never going to happen.
Seth Rollins talked for almost 15 minutes. That used to be how long the nightly newscast was in your local market. If Seth had been the newscaster...
I used to be that kid sitting at ringside.
Yeah.
And now my family wouldn't be able to afford those tickets. We'd have to go do something else.
Yeah. I'd have to sell my little brother to get the tickets for this. All right, but anyway, then I know you'll find this hard to believe, but they actually got into a match along about seg 2 or 3 or so, half an hour in. The tag team title, the Street Profits, had beaten Bronson and Theory for the belts, and they had a rematch here, and Paul Lee had given Theory an ultimatum. Like, hey, show your wise man something here. And again, I think Montez Ford is a single. Dawkins, whether it's that gold lame baggie he wears or just, I don't know what, it puts me off. So finally in the finish of this, and I'm going to make a point here, the match was okay. It was what it was. I didn't pay close attention, but Logan Paul in the finish tries to slip the brass knucks to Theory. But the referee sees it, and the referee gets him. And then Logan Paul slides another set to Braun Breaker. And he gets him, but the baby faces foiled that. And then Daryl Dawkins got the knucks. But suddenly, here came Model Girl, who apparently now has a thing for Theory. And she nutshotted Dawkins, and in Theory covered him 1, 2, 3, and they won the belts. And then, of course, Model Girl comes up and jumps up in Theory's arms, and he kissed her, and he kissed her, and then he kissed her again. And then he kissed her again. He was kissing her a lot. Talk about taking advantage of a gimmick.
Didn't she just get married recently? Is this like one of those old WWE things like, oh, you're married, now we're going to have you making out with the wrestlers all the time?
No, this is a Heyman, and this is perfect. Because what did they do with Rick Rude? When Jerry Jarrett got Rick Rude as a plain job guy from Bill Watts as a babyface, he got him a robe to go along with that good-looking body. And he had Rude bring his girlfriend along as a valet. And he gave him Jimmy Hart as a manager. Now you got a manager and you got this guy that's got this girl and they look good together. And you're building a more mature package of this fucking guy. So they're dressing him up. And so that's definitely a Heyman. And she looks great, but she can't wrestle. So this is perfect. And the thing is, if this works and they become another Rick Rude and Sherry Martel, then she will be consistently in the main events and featured on top without having to fucking take bumps and be in the, underneath girls matches that don't matter because she ain't going to be Rhea Ripley.
Well, let's not compare her to Sherry Martel because she ain't going to be Sherry Martel.
Well, but I'm just, I don't know. Theory might not be Rick Rude either, but I'm just saying if they become that, this is a case where it's more advantageous for the girl to be in that position instead of wrestling on her own.
Well, again, Sherry Martel and Rick Rude wasn't a combination people think about, but when you look at this and you think of Theory and all the starts and stops and him and Waller, I mean, just all the things over the last few years, when you stop and think about it, the idea of him having an evil valet, it's a good idea, actually.
Yes.
It's something that hasn't been done yet, and it could be the freshness that he needs to make him more than the guy in the group that does the job every match.
That's why, Waller was for comedy and it drug him down. And, he had to pay penance for Vince liking him and the egg and all that other stuff. But as he gets older and they play with the look and he's under Heyman's wing now and he's in the group and now he's got the group has a hot girl. There you go. That's simple as that.
Well, something good for once in a Vision segment. It's been a while. It's been kind of a bore lately. But anything else on Raw that you saw?
Well, then Paul E, because he's doing double duty in two different universes. He's got the Vision group going on, but he's also got Brock Lesnar. And Paul came out and cut the promo on Oba Femi and the Hell in a Cell match, and the fans chant Oba and etc. And Paul E cut the promo like he was done. He said, Oba's made a big mistake. And he dropped the microphone and was going to leave. And then, boom, Oba music. And Oba makes the big entrance. And then Paul speaks to him for a while. And he said, the Hell in a Cell is the Broctagon. And then Paul tossed the microphone to Oba, but Oba milked it and responded for a while. I can't say this was bad. Actually, Oba's doing better than I thought he would. And it's just, part of it is not even the talent's fault anymore. All of these things have to be so wordy because they have to fill a certain amount of time. This went, I'd say 12 to 15 minutes. They could have done the same thing in 8 to 10 tops, and it would have just been a little peppier, but nothing about this was bad. But I think one thing that people are not getting, Brian, when we said, well, I guess they just said they were going to do whatever the fuck they want with the booking when Oba won the King of the Ring, and then it's the Hell in a Cell. People were like, well, you of all people don't understand. He doesn't want the title match. It's a personal issue. He wants Brock. I understand that. But they knew what they were going to do, and they decided to have the guy win the tournament where not only traditionally over the past years and years and years, but they actually advertise he's then going to main event SummerSlam against the champion for the title. But then the other guy just comes out and boom, okay, let's just change all that. It was just done in a very slapdash fashion, Brian, was my bitch. Did I articulate that for the people who said we couldn't figure out that Oba was just madder at Brock? Of course he is.
Yeah, but it seems like he'd really be damaging Brock if he deprived Brock of the third match too. They're even and he's got the world title shot. But yeah, I mean,
what about if he says, if it tell you what, I'll take my world title shot at SummerSlam night 1, I'll fight you at night 2, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Then he didn't have to just say, I'll just take this instead of getting my title match with it, with no, there was nothing put in paper in front of him either. I would have got all that deal written down. He's dealing with Heyman. You never know.
I'll wrestle for 2 nights. You only have to wrestle me 1 night, and then night 1, you have to carry Paul Heyman on your back and run up the stairs.
Well, in that case, he might as well fold his tent. But there was a few other things which I didn't really give a shit about. But Raw produced for once, and again, at the top, the stars can work. They have good matches. That it can be done here. It's just, unfortunately, it's only a handful of main eventers these days.
Well, there it is. That was WWE Monday Night Raw in Chicago. New World Champion CM Punk. He'll be on SmackDown this week, so we'll cover that. Jim, why don't we return to our look at the top wrestlers in their 40s in 1984, putting together our final list. And we'll also talk about the wrestlers in their 50s in 1984.
I knew you were going to say that as I go and get my list here from under this stack of paperwork. There we have it. And we got a little figuring to do, as they say. But what we've been doing for some time now, the people can go back on the YouTube channel and take a look at all the clips. We put together a list of the main active wrestlers. By far, this is not complete, but the main active wrestlers in the territories in 1984, and figured out which ones were still in their 20s, which ones in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and who the top 20 were in each category. And we've already gone through 5 different Wrestling Hall of Fames, and we proved that while today the guys on top are in their 40s, that the guys in 40 years ago, the guys in their 20s were already main eventing numerous places, selling out big buildings, drawing money. The guys in their 30s were considered veterans, and the guys in their 40s are fucking icons by that point. So it's a kind of, everything's slowed down about wrestling in the last 40 years.
Well, Jim, looking at this list, we have 16 people we have put on the list for the top 20. Let me give them: Jack Briscoe, 43. Antonio Inoki, 41. Bob Armstrong, 45. Blackjack Mulligan, 42. Ray Stevens, 49. Giant Baba, 46. Harley Race, 41. Ivan Koloff, 42. Jimmy Valiant, 42. Mil Mascaras, 42. Terry Funk, the baby on the list, at 40. Wahoo McDaniel, 46. Abdullah the Butcher, 43. Ernie Ladd, 46. The Iron Sheik, 42. And finally, Bobby Heenan, 40.
And the reason why we picked those 16, we have question marks besides others, because as we were going from top to bottom, we wanted to be judicious and not just give everybody a check mark, because other names, huge names in the wrestling business, were left out. But do you have the question marks that we had marked down? Because I do, I think.
I have them.
Just in case.
Did I say Ernie Ladd before? I just want to make sure I didn't miss that.
Yes, you said Ernie.
Ernie Ladd, 46. Here are the question marks. And 4 of these people will make this list. Ken Patera, 42. Rocky Johnson, 42. Alpha, 42. Superstar Billy Graham, 41. Dory Funk Jr., 43. Baron Von Raschke, 44. Blackjack Lanza, 49. Bill Superstar Dundee, 41. George the Animal Steele, 47. Cowboy Bill Watts, 45. And Mark Lewin, 47.
Whew. And again, a lot of the reasons why that we didn't give, I mean, Superstar Billy Graham at one point in time would have been an automatic check mark. So would Dory Funk Jr. but we were also considering their 1984 and how they were doing at that point. Rocky Johnson was on top in the WWF, but was fixing to be on the bottom and out of the WWF. Bill Dundee in 1984 was a preliminary or mid-card guy wrestling for Mid-South, but he was the booker of the record year that they ever had in business at the same time. So there were Watts set the record for the main events of his record run, but he was primarily a full-time promoter and only worked 14 times that year. So that's why we had some question marks on these guys. But I mean, to be honest, seeing this name or this list of names in one place, do we have to put Billy Graham and Dory Funk Jr. in just because of who the fuck they were and would continue to be?
Again, we're talking 84. Dory Funk Jr. was still in a top position for All Japan. Dory Funk would still team with his brother Terry at the tag team tournament that year. So I think there's an argument for Dory.
Yeah, in the domestic business, he had been working in the Carolinas the previous year, but been primarily booking also. And he would go back, I think, this year to work some in Florida, but he was, as you said, past it at that point. Not over the hill, but he was working in Japan for big money, but he was primarily picking his spots because he could here in the United States.
So I think there's an argument for Dory Jr. based off Japan alone. Superstar Billy Graham, 84 is kind of the year he turns back into a version of the old superstar, right? But,
yeah, got the tie-dye back.
But it
was just so
tough.
But
he's
because
so
of
broken
who he
down.
was.
He's so broken down. I mean, it's hard.
But he could still talk that year.
He could. Well, let's come back to that one.
Okay,
Patera.
We'll put a question mark on the question mark.
Ken Patera is in the AWA and the WWF in the same year. AWA, he's part of the stable with Jerry Blackwell and Sheik Adnan El Casey. In the WWF, he's a part of the beginning of the Heenan family in the WWF. Two prominent positions. He's a part of the angle where they cut Andre the Giant's hair, although I guess that may have been early 85. But he was in a good position. He was still really good in the ring. He still looked like a star. I think Ken Patera has a case here. You had no idea that, I mean, wrestling fans didn't really know anything, that he was going to go to jail the next year, be gone for a few years, and come back and kind of lose his charisma. Or, you know, it was different. Babyface Ken Patera in his brunette hair. Just, it didn't work. It just didn't work.
It was the difference between being 42 and still having been doing what you were doing regularly and being 45 and been in jail for a few years.
So I think there's an argument for Ken Patera. Bill Watts, to circle back to that, again, limited action in the ring, tore his hammy like night one. So I mean, he was very limited in what he did even during the comeback. That was limited.
The one-legged man won the ass-kicking contest every night.
But he was in the biggest drawing match everywhere in the territory. And the fans there, no one left saying, I mean, I'm sure maybe there was some smart ass, but people didn't leave going, well, Bill Watts can't do it anymore. It was the opposite. Like, oh yeah, he kicked
good
their ass.
Lord. No, he beat both Bobby and Dennis, got juice on both of them, beat them, jerked me in the ring. They stripped me down and either dressed me in the diaper or the dress. He fucking, the buildings were sold out. The places couldn't scream any fucking louder. They thought Bill Watts was fucking Superman.
So I think maybe there's a case for him, because if you look at everyone else here, George Steele, I do not personally think there's a case for 1984.
Yeah.
Bill Dundee, if you don't think there's a case for him really in 84, I'm certainly not going to disagree with you, and I'm a big Bill Dundee fan. But 84,
yeah, he was doing a different thing. He was above a wrestling list at that point.
For me personally, I don't think Jack Lanza would make my list.
Not that year.
For 84. So we have Dory Jr. as a maybe still. Billy Graham I have as a maybe still. Patera's a maybe still. Baron von Raschke. What are your thoughts?
Not for 1985. I mean, he was still in the business, but the Baron's prime run to me was late 60s to late 70s when he could really be Der Baron. And I know he always appeared old, but until he hit 40, he didn't really work old. He was very animated.
All right, so that leaves us with Mark Lewin, one of the names. And again, wasn't exactly the worker he had been in his youth. He was a heel, kind of a human monster of sorts as the Purple Haze. Active, was always doing stuff, him and Kevin Sullivan during those years.
And what a physique when he was closing in on 50.
Yeah. He may be someone to consider just because he was, I don't know. Let's come back to that. Rocky Johnson. Rocky Johnson begins the year as one of the World Tag Team Champions with Tony Atlas in the World Wrestling Federation. It's a big deal. First African-American tag team to win the belts. They made it a big deal on TV. It was a big deal. The story's famous. They hated each other. They barely teamed. So they were the champions, but it wasn't like, I dare someone to find 5 matches that they had together as a team. Like, they didn't team a lot. And then Rocky Johnson was pretty much gone, although still working there. Like, he was on house shows, but he wasn't featured prominently on TV during the national expansion. Famously, he was in the Middle East during WrestleMania. And then, he's back in Memphis a couple years later working for his family in Hawaii later that year and into 86, I think. So 84 is a tough year because 83, he's on the list for sure. But 84, there's not much of him and the push goes away. It just goes completely away.
And here is a great example, what I was talking about earlier. The guys in their 40s, they had either become icons and come to the point where they can pick their spots and do what they want to do. And some of them have transitioned into booking, or they're on the tail end of their career and it's about over. And that's the age group that now is still contains the top guys, the primary money drawers. And here it's either they've done it and they're over and they'll always be over, but their best years are behind them, or they're transitioning out of the business.
And the final name on the list, Alpha. Wild Samoans begin the year as the heel tag team for Captain Lou. They turn babyface. Then they leave, I think by the end of the year, they're working opposition, Pro Wrestling USA at the Meadowlands.
How is Sika not on here either?
He's younger.
Was he on the 30s?
I don't know if he didn't make the final list, if that's what you mean, but he was one of the names.
But I mean, do we even have him down? I was like,
I will go back and check.
Sika, right, April 1945. He was 39.
There you go. All right, so no Alpha. I think we could agree. I'll take the heat from the Samoans. I'll let you say nothing. I see what's going on.
Yeah, you watch out for the Samoans. I'll watch out for the Sicilians.
Do we both agree that Dory Jr. should be on the list, considering where we are?
I think he's got to be. It's Dory Funk Jr.
All right, so Dory Jr. makes 17. So now we're down to maybe Bill Watts, maybe Mark Lewin, maybe Rocky Johnson. Is that it? Those are the names.
I still think you got to have Billy Graham in there.
Oh, Billy Graham's still a maybe. So okay, you know what? Let's put Billy Graham.
Because now these men's families are depending on making this list. Now we've got to think carefully.
So 2 more available spots.
Fuck it, put Watts on there.
2 more available spots. Let's go with Cowboy Bill Watts. That's what Jim is saying.
Because I mean, even if he only wrestled 14 times that year, whatever it was, there was 14 of the biggest gates in the history of the wrestling in those towns.
So we have one final spot on the list. Rocky Johnson or Mark Lewin? That is tough. Again,
I'd
Rocky,
say flip a coin.
No, we can't do that. It has to be with some sort of logic applied to it.
Well, in that case, let's ask the puppies, because Stacy just got back from the doctor's appointment and she's grabbing the babies. I just cleaned up Poopy Foot before we started the show, Mommy.
Once again,
I cleaned up Poopy Foot.
20 wrestlers in their 40s.
Yeah, we don't care about the wrestling stuff. We're talking about puppies. I cleaned up Poopy Foot because I had to clean up the dirt over there. And while I was cleaning up the dirt over there, they were in their pen and they hopped up and down in their poop.
Puppy poop.
And Alfie got Poopy Foot. This has been an update on what was going on earlier in the day, ladies and gentlemen, if you just joined the podcast.
Well, Jim, Rocky Johnson and Poopy Foot Mark Lewin.
Rocky Johnson and Poopy Foot Lewin. Let's go with Rocky Johnson.
And you're putting Rocky Johnson on the final name, and there it is, the top 20 wrestlers in 1984, according to Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
Jim, after making a list like that, after making a big list like that,
what would you need to do? Eat something?
I think you'd be hungry. I mean, I'm hungry. You're not hungry? I'm hungry. You have to eat something.
Well, I was hungry until I started thinking about the Poopy Foot. But folks, here's the thing: with Factor meals, you're not going to have poop. You're not going to have any poop in the meals because the meals are food and they use only functional ingredients, of which poop is not one. We're talking lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, healthy fats. We're not talking about excrement. Nope. We're not talking about manure. We're not talking about puppy poop. We're talking about only positive, globally inspired flavors like Mediterranean and Asian.
That's right. Why even mention the other stuff? Why even
because I was transitioning because I was thinking about the puppy poop before that I cleaned up, but now I'm thinking about the miso edamame and the elote corn that I could have, the vibrant ingredients from Factor Meals. Over 100 rotating weekly meals. They spin so fast sometimes you can't see what they are, but just stick a fork in them. They'll slow down. They're ready in 2 minutes because Factor does the shopping. Factor does the prep. Factor does the cooking. Factor delivers straight to your door. Factor will rub your neck as you put it in your mouth so you don't even have to chew it. You can swallow.
Factor will not, there's no Factor person or instrument that will be doing such a thing. Factor is the company that will be supplying you with this wonderful chef-crafted meals, delicious and nutritious, fresh and ready to go.
Yes.
For you, the person on the go.
I was going to ask the puppies to bark when you said fresh, and they'd go, woof. But Stacy's already taken them downstairs to get one of their Factor meals.
No, again, let's stop.
They like the teriyaki salmon
that you humans. It is for humans. The teriyaki salmon's delicious. Let's not waste it.
Wait a minute. Well, you're saying it's humans. What is Factor Meals Soylent Green?
Humans. It's for humans.
I thought it was teriyaki. It's for humans, not just 3, but 4 humans.
It's to serve you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you can get a dinner if you could eat 4 human beings.
No, that's God damn it. Listen. They have regular meals that people can go and look up the menu for. Wonderful, delicious, nutritious, normal moo meals featuring lots of moo cows and all these sorts of other things. Ladies and gentlemen, they're delicious. Please ignore everything else you've heard in this spot and just know that I'm telling you, these are delicious and they taste good and you're not going to mind them taking up space in your fridge because they're delicious.
And if they take up space, you can just move them over. Factormeals.com is where you got to go to find out about all this. Yes. And they'll tell you what they want you to know that is in there. And if you use the code JCE50 off, you're going to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with new subscriptions only while supplies last. And these greens, they go like hotcakes. Matter of fact, does Factor have hotcakes? I've always wanted to find out from somebody that sells hotcakes how hotcakes sell. If they sell hotcakes, then I could ask them how the hotcakes sell, because I've been led to believe that that's the measure of success.
Well, I think it's because of how popular they were when they were first invented and spread around, not where hotcakes are today in 2028.
You don't see a lot of people eating hotcakes these days.
No, you don't.
That's why if we say these things are selling like hotcakes, well, we'll fucking jinx it.
Once again, Jim, there's a great promo code.
These things are selling like teriyaki salmon from factormeals.com/JCE50 off. You're going to get 50% off the first box of Factor Meals and free daily greens also. They're charging you nothing for these clippings that they're going to throw in along with your delicious
clippings.
Food.
Once again, trust the process. Trust me.
They got the dirt ball on the bottom of them.
They don't have any of that. Will you stop? We're here at the end, and we're here.
You got to clip it right off at the
any
thing.
question about delicious meals. Yes. Of course,
fresh,
those will be
never frozen.
Fresh, never frozen.
Never frozen.
Never frozen.
Just nutrient dense food. Food so thick with nutrients and vitamins and minerals and meat and vitamin to vegemin. It's just dense.
Friends, these are delicious meals. Try them today. Let us know what you think. Factormeals.com/JCE50 off. And we will be right back after this.
Yes, let us know what you think, but there's no accounting for some people's taste.
We'll be right back after this.
Okay, we'll do that.
All right, we are here, the home stretch.
You scared the puppies off.
You said they left before. I didn't scare them off. You said Stacy took them downstairs.
Yeah, because she knew that was coming.
Oh, get out of here. It had nothing to do with me. You're just in a bad mood and you're taking it out on me. The whispering
I'm not in a bad mood. I got puppies.
You had puppies. She took them.
Well, now I got no puppies. I'm puppyless.
Jim, before we move on here with the show, any thoughts on the news today? The passing of Louise Lasser.
Oh, no, I did not know this. Mary Hartman?
That's right.
How old was she?
87.
Good Lord. She was over 20 years older than me when I was watching her on television. Well, that just doesn't seem right. Were you a Mary Hartman fan?
You know what? Obviously that aired before I was born, and whenever I tried to go back and watch it, I never got the experience because I never saw it from like episode 1 or anything.
Oh, yeah. No, it was like a nighttime soap opera spoof type of thing. You had to watch it from the beginning or you didn't have any idea what was going on. But it was very strange for the time. It was a very bizarre show.
Well, she seemed to be a fairly strange, there's famous stories about her behavior on Saturday Night Live. Although I think she blames it all on Chevy Chase, so you never really know what happened. But
everybody blames Chevy.
She seemed to be a bit kooky. I guess that'd be the nicest way to say it.
Well, yeah, and then there was Victor Killian was the Fernwood Flasher. He was the grandfather. That was very edgy for 1975 to have an old man flashing in a raincoat.
Did you like Fernwood Tonight?
I liked Martin Mull, but I think it should have been a sketch rather than a show.
He had the best role on Arrested Development. His name was Jean Parmesan, and he was a private detective. And basically every time they'd be having a conversation, he would just turn around and rip off his mustache and reveal that it was him, with the people that he was being paid by, and the woman would scream. But underrated role for Martin Mull.
Did he kill Louise Lasser?
No, I think he's already dead, isn't he?
Well, then why are you blaming him for it?
I'm not, but it's part of the Fernwood community. I guess I'm just trying to cover Fernwood news. We've lost a lot of people, but there's always more to be picked up.
You kidding? We've lost a lot of people. You think by this point? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have.
All right. Well, our sympathies to the friends and family of...
Our sympathies to the people we've lost.
People we've lost.
They couldn't take anymore. They had to bail.
Well, Jim, speaking of things we've lost, we've gone through the wrestlers in their 20s, 30s, and 40s for 1984. There aren't enough names in their 50s to compile a list of the top 20, but the wrestlers active in their 50s are all very interesting, so I thought we should talk about this as well.
Well, yes, and this is, again, it's not a complete list because There were, how old was Gypsy Joe that year? Who knows? There were still wrestlers around in their 50s, not on this list, but they were not being used prominently or regularly or working full time or whatever. But somebody out there is going to go, what about so and so? We're talking about the mainstream territories on a featured basis, still working regularly in the business.
So wrestlers in their 50s in 1984. Jim turning 51 in December. Someone I believe you would have been around in 84. Super Sock Jose Lothario.
We worked with him in 1984.
Yeah, Houston.
He was still huge in Houston. And of course, that means in 1996, when he was training Shawn, he was 63 and could still take care of himself. But
and you worked with him there too.
And I worked with him there too. Yeah, and he beat me very quickly. It takes a good man to beat me, but it don't take him long. But Jose, by this point, had been in the business for pretty close to 30 years, had been on top in Texas and California and the Southwest, all over. He worked also in Florida at various points in time, had different runs on top, but especially I think his main market would have been Houston because he just became a legend there. And he was always over for Paul Bosch. At this point, he was still working part-time. And not only did he work in Houston and worked with the Midnight Express some, but didn't he have, he worked some in Southwest that year as well, at least as I remember.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Southwest still was in 1984. It may have already started switching over.
That's true. It may have been morphing by that point. But yeah, Jose, I mean, a Hall of Fame name, but this would probably been his last year, maybe the year before his last year full-time into business.
He had worked a lot. He had been around a long time. From what you saw, could he still go in 84?
Yes. I mean, he was 50 years old, but he still was in shape. And his style was the fiery babyface comeback with the punches, Super Sock, because he had the boxing background. And he didn't need to sell like Ricky Morton, because if you just got Jose down, they were upset. So the matches worked just fine. And he could still, hip toss, body slam, arm drag. He wasn't flying head scissoring, but, he was a heck of a worker.
Jim turning 50 in December. Nick Bockwinkel.
I'm just amazed at, I saw Bockwinkel the first time live in 78. He would have been 44 at that point. He was the AWA champion, and he was still in the prime of his career. But the series he had with Lawler in 82 and 83, where I got to see him live on a several time a week basis, sometimes Memphis, Louisville, Lexington. I don't know how he did it. He was in amazing condition. There, he wasn't a bodybuilder, but he had a great physique. There was very little fat on him. He could move like a cat. He was so smooth. He was taking the bumps just like he was a guy 20 years younger. And he had all that experience, but he could still do that shit. I don't remember, did he ever have a major injury? Now, maybe after he retired, things caught up to him. But do you ever remember Nick Bockwinkel taking any extended period of time off? So he was just a wonder, one of the all-time best in the ring, in the business at any age. And truthfully, of all the world champions, to have a good match with the best one, because he could work with anybody. And it wasn't like Dory style or Jack Briscoe style or Harley style, where not only because of the respect that the other guys had for them, they would work their match Bockwinkel would go in and work different matches with different people. He'd have a match with Crusher, and he'd have a match with Lawler. It'd be two completely different fucking things. So, yeah, Nick definitely was the guy, especially in his 50s. That's amazing.
Jim turning 51 in July. The Freight Train, Rufus R. Jones.
And the R stands for guts. Woo! Talk about a guy having his match. If you had your Rufus R. Jones match, that's the match you could have. He drew a lot of money in a variety of places. Believe it, St. Louis was one of them, believe it or not. But it was the gimmick. I mean, I saw him in 74 when he was only 40. And physique-wise, he wasn't much, but it looked better for the gimmick. That he was just a big, fat guy with an over-the-top personality. But you had to do Rufus's shit, and you had to have Rufus's match. And that's all you were going to get in the ring. But it was like Jimmy Valiant in the Carolinas in the 80s. He was so over. Places that he was over it didn't matter. And places that he didn't get over, he either didn't go or didn't stay long.
Certainly a memorable promo. Jim turning 55 in June. Dick the Bruiser.
I mean, one of the all-time great names, one of the all-time box office draws, one of the all-time unique personalities. At that point, Bruiser was, he had owned the territory, and then the territory had gone under. He was still a major name, but really the only place that he was working at that time was Chicago. Indy had kind of fallen apart, and a little bit for Vern, he was on the verge of retirement, but he was a main event guy from the first year he was in the business in 1955. And he was one of Barnett's major draws in Detroit, Indianapolis, Chicago, the whole Midwest, when that was a really lucrative territory. But he made shots in Japan, starting in the 60s for Baba. He worked in every major market. He was a national name. Very few on this list even were that big and well known. He's a top 10 box office guy.
And of course, his famous partner, the Crusher, Reggie Lasowski, turning 58 in July. And he would be more active than Dick the Bruiser because him and Baron von Raschke teamed up, and
yes,
he was still a big draw for Vern.
Crusher was still over, and we've talked about it until the Road Warriors came along up there in 85, and the people saw that, and it was like that's what kind of popped the bubble of the myth of Bruiser and Crusher. But to that point in time, they were considered by all the fans that saw them the toughest guys in the business. And Crusher, Bruiser's work at one point was excellent. In his younger days, Bruiser took bumps, backdrops, slams, hip tosses. He could do shit. Crusher was always more of the gimmick. He had been a bodybuilder, but even in the early 50s on the Chicago TV, it was more about the gimmick, and that's kind of what it grew into. And then by the 60s, it was the promos and the whole personality. But he was Vern's top babyface. Even though Robinson was slotted in that spot, Crusher outdrew everybody in the AWA, including Vern, for years. I think, what did he go? Was it 6 or 7 years that they had every show at the Milwaukee Arena was a sellout with Crusher on top?
And he knew it. And him and Vern didn't get along, right?
Well, yeah, that's what basically Vern liked to take summers off or have a light schedule because people up there like to go to the lakes and go out, whatever. So he'd run his bigger towns and more often in the wintertime. Well, it seemed like every spring Crusher and Vern would have an argument. So Crusher would take the summer off And then Vern would have to come and talk nice to him to get him to come back for the fall when they started needing to draw money again.
The Crusher, of course, is a few years after his very interesting run in '79 in Georgia when Bobby Heenan was there,
good
too.
Lord.
I remember
that's
Crusher
one place
and Tommy
it did.
Rich next to each other. It looked like Tommy Rich's grandfather. Like
it didn't work. You couldn't transplant Crusher at age where's his birthday? At age 53 at that time in '79. You couldn't transplant Crusher out of his territory to Georgia where they didn't know what the fuck. It didn't work.
Jim turning 55 in September. He would have a big jump. He would jump from the AWA to the WWF. Mad Dog Vachon.
And, that's look at the list of guys in their 50s. Nick Bockwinkel, Bruiser, Crusher, Mad Dog Vachon. They're all still working for Vern. And the only reason Vern's not on the list is because he already made all his money and retired in '81, but he came back a couple of times. That's the problem. All those guys were such great stars and household names, but Vern kept them on just too long. And with Mad Dog, the reason why that he jumped to the WWF was because he was still so over at 55 that Vince needed him for some of those key AWA markets or like a Winnipeg or Montreal.
Minneapolis.
I got the dog in Montreal.
Yeah. There's footage of his debut, which seemed to surprise a lot of the fans there. And he came out in, I think, St. Paul, maybe it was Minneapolis. Just a monster pop. Just like the biggest pop you've ever seen for a 55-year-old Mad Dog Vachon.
55 years old, 5'6", and could have literally eaten everybody in the locker room alive in a shoot.
Jim turning 56 in October, he would still be active for a nationally expanding WWF, Chief Jay Strongbow.
Woo! All right, and I worked with Strongbow when he was an agent in the 90s, and I didn't mind him as much as a lot of people did. He was just a cranky old guy at that point. But God almighty, I never got Chief Jay Strongbow as a talent, as a wrestler, as Vince Sr. decided that he wanted an Indian because he had in all the rest of his circus, he had all the other parts filled. And he takes Joe Scarpa, who's been an Italian for the previous 20 years, and remakes him as Chief Jay Strongbow in 1970, 71?
Yeah.
And he had a spot for the next 15 years, and he got him over where he was teaming with Bruno against the Valiant Brothers, or he'd team with Andre, or he'd be the guy that all the top heels that were going to face Bruno or Pedro had to beat first. It was amazing because by that point, let's see, 1928, he was 43 when he became Jay Strongbow, and almost 15 years later, he's still there. It was, who in the ring was rotten, brother. And that's, Strongbow told one of the guys, who was it? It was Owen. It was Owen. It wasn't Davey. He wasn't even there. So, it's not believable. It's not believable when you do that thing or whatever. And Owen said something like, yeah, it's not believable. Like when you break into a war dance before you fight the guy. Oh, God damn it. It's not what I mean.
Well, Jim, turning 54 in July, someone you would be around, although not under this name, The Destroyer.
Well, Dick Beyer was the Destroyer, and he, at that point, was pretty much retired or semi-retired. He might go, was he still going to Japan at that point every once in a while, or was that just for ceremonies, not to wrestle? But
no, he was still wrestling. But he had a project, but in 1984, he had a specific project.
Well, yes, because that's the thing is, in the States, he wasn't really wrestling anymore, but he had trained that kid named Mark Reagan, who was a African-American kid from Buffalo. And just one day, I looked at the upcoming cards, and there was the opening match was the Destroyer versus Mark Reagan. And I thought, okay, they've got some guy under a hood or whatever. Come to find out, it was the Destroyer. Dick Beyer knew Watts because the Destroyer had been not only the greatest American masked man, probably of the previous 20 years, but he had been a hotshot amateur. And in Syracuse and in the 50s early 50s. And he'd been everywhere and he knew everybody. So he called Watts and said, hey, I've trained this kid. Can you use him underneath? He's a good baby face. I'll come down and put it for 2 weeks for the loop and put him over. So that's all of a sudden the Destroyer, Dick Beyer, shows up in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And for the next 2 weeks in Mid-South in the opening match, which I guarantee you he hadn't wrestled in 20 years at that point, he put this young kid that he had trained over every night. And then they used Mark Reagan for a while after that, and he was a good prospect, and I guess he got lost in the shuffle, with the territories going belly up or whatever. But yeah, and the people in Mid-South, because he had been to McGurk's territory, but it'd been 20 years, and he'd been big in Texas, but that was years before. So the people in Louisiana are just like, who's this fucking guy? This is one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of the business.
Jim, another wrestler you would be around in Mid-South in 1984, turning 50 in September, Mr. Wrestling 2.
Boy, howdy. And I tell you what, Johnny looked older. And that's why he had the mask on, because facially he had started looking old and gone bald when he was even younger. But when you compared, both of them were great workers, Destroyer and Wrestling 2. But when you compared the personality of the two of them, Dick Beyer was still like one of the guys. He was joking and ribbing and laughing and telling jokes. He walked out every night. He would walk out and shake hands with all the police that were going to walk the heels to the ring, because he'd been in business long enough to make friends with these guys. And he'd go out with his hood on, but to make sure that they knew that he was cool. Hey, how you doing, guys? Big Dick Hurts. Nice to meet you. And they'd all laugh and they'd keep an eye on him. He wasn't going to get any heat fucking losing to Mark Reagan anyway. Wrestling 2 was just cranky. He was cranky, and he did it. And that's why they turned him heel before the run was finished, because Dundee had told Watts, said, he don't want to be here, mate. He's cranky. He's done. He's finished with it. Let's turn him heel and at least let that personality come out a little bit. So that's why they did that. And then he went to work for Vince, because Vince wanted him for Atlanta and maybe another town. And that didn't last, 6 months, did it?
It may have lasted a little bit longer, but he was never used prominently. I mean, if you saw him on TV, he was tagging with a job guy that would do the job.
Yeah.
But he was on the team doing the job.
Which is a nice way that they used to say, well, you used to be somebody, so we're not going to beat you, but we got no fucking use for you, so we're going to beat your partner.
Jim, 57 years old in January, Tojo Yamamoto.
That's the thing. I never knew. That was the big question. When I was a young fan and nobody was able to find out the real ages and things, how old is fucking Tojo? Because he'd been around the territory forever, it seemed like, but he never changed. He never aged. When he was a heel, he would grow a little goatee. And when he was a babyface, he'd shave it off. And otherwise, there was never a change in his facial features. Wrinkles never came or went. He never gained or lost weight. It was just, and the physique and the shape, it was what it was. And that's another guy. You couldn't, without a push, without him coming in, being pushed, getting over, beating established stars, if you just saw him cold, no, it was death. It was over, especially by that time. He was, in his 50s. But this is the same guy in 1962. They brought him into the Carolinas and he got over as a heel at 5'6" and that shape with his heel tactics and just the personality. They gave him an NWA title match against Buddy Rogers in Charlotte at the ballpark. B.Y. Chung. And then they brought him to Tennessee and he got over so good and got in with Nick and Roy and never left. And he worked on top and was a money-drawing talent that was considered a main event guy. When he was on the card, people like he's one of the big three at one point. Tojo Yamamoto, Jackie Fargo, Jerry Jarrett, the big three baby faces. But he never had to leave. When he wasn't wrestling, he was training guys. Was it Jerry Jarrett, Tommy Rich, Roy Rogers, Bobby Eaton? Then later on, he managed Onita, Fuchi, different Japanese heels that would come in where there was a language issue. And then, honestly, he had still, when he committed suicide. And I think it was 1992, I believe it was, where he would have been 60, he was around 65 years old. And he was despondent because he had no family. And the only person that he left he left a note for the lady that managed his apartment complex and left her some things. But because he had become diabetic and he'd gotten so old, he couldn't be in the wrestling business anymore. And that was really the only thing that he cared about. But he was, from the time he first started in the mid-50s until early 90s, he was in the business almost 40 years.
Well, Jim, one more name on the 50s list, and then we'll talk about two names on the 60s list. Turning 50 in April, Les Thornton.
The unmentionable. It used to be a deal. If you mentioned his name, bad luck would befall you. It was kind of like an early...
What?
Fucking Danhausen. No, it was a jinx in the business. If you mentioned Les Thornton's name, it was cursed. Bad luck would happen. He's another guy. I saw him in 1980 in the Omni live. That would have been when he was 46. And my God, there wasn't a wrinkle on his body. He was short, but he was hefty, in great shape, and he was like Tony Charles and like Billy Robinson and those guys. Amazing mat wrestler, amazing cardio. You couldn't blow him up. You couldn't wear him down. And they put the World Junior Heavyweight title on him for quite some time around this period, and before that, the 70s, because he was a smaller guy. As I said, in terms of height, still probably weighed 225 or whatever. But he was an outstanding wrestler, but it was kind of like the deal that he couldn't cut the promo. And like as Eddie Graham said about Robinson and Charles, they're great. It's great wrestling and it's great to have on the card, but you can't put them on top, even in a wrestling territory, because the personality, the gimmick, the work, the flash was not there. But you could intermix that and, give credibility to your business.
Well, Jim, briefly, here are the wrestlers in their 60s in 1984. Turning 60 in July.
Wow.
Bobo Brazil.
That means in 1997, he would have been 73. Bobo was as they call him, the Jackie Robinson of wrestling. He wasn't the first major black wrestling star. I mean, there was, we've talked about the Black Panther, Jim Mitchell in the 40s. And before that, there was the Jack Claibornes, and there's been black stars since the dawn of time. not many in the early days, but Bobo was the first one to get over on everybody's television when the territories first started forming. He'd started in the business in, I think, 1949. So he'd been wrestling 35 years at this point. And he'd played not football, baseball, but before it was the Negro Leagues that he had tried out for or had a spot with one of the teams, because it was before they were integrated. But as the territory started forming, especially because Barnett liked him and used him in the Midwest, and then the Sheik, took that over, and Bobo Brazil in Detroit was maybe the all in all the longest running big baby face ever there. But he worked everywhere. Bobo and the Sheik was the semifinal under Blassie and Tolos in the Coliseum in Los Angeles in 71. And Bobo was huge in the Northeast, and for Vince Sr. was the United States champion. They even used him over guys like Rogers in Washington, D.C., because Bobo was so over with the black audience. So really every major market, they knew Bobo Brazil, and he worked a lot in the Tennessee territory in the 70s, honestly, because, his former money territories, Detroit and Indianapolis, had kind of gone down, and the money wasn't there, but Goulas and Welch and Jarrett respected him to a degree that he was still working on top. They brought him in to challenge Lawler for the CWA title in 1979. He would have been 55. But it's still, with the size and the body hardly ever changed. It worked, but he would he have one more year maybe in mainstream territories? Maybe he got booked like Florida a bit. And then he was doing indies with Sheik in Ontario and stuff after this, right?
I don't know how much more mainstream time he had. In 84, he did work for the WWF as they were expanding nationally. I think on the first WWF Georgia Championship Wrestling episode, Black Saturday, I want to say it's Bobo Brazil against, not Andre, Bobo Brazil against Big John Studd from one of the arenas. They aired that match, which is interesting. If it's your first show, you're trying to, in your eyes, impress these fans with your brand of wrestling. That's one of the first things that Vince McMahon rolled out. Bobo Brazil and Big John Studd.
And Bobo at 60 and Studd being Studd. That's where James Dudley got in the Hall of Fame. You know that, Brian?
Well, tell us.
Did you know that?
I've always heard that it was Vince McMahon's driver.
Well, that's the thing. But they called him Manager Extraordinaire James Dudley when they inducted him in the Hall of Fame. James Dudley was Vince Sr.'s limo driver, but because Bobo Brazil was the number one babyface in Washington, D.C., he got a manager like they did later on with Skoland and Bruno. James Dudley would walk to the ring with Bobo and take his vest and whatever the fuck, and that's how he got inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Well, Jim, the final name on this list, turning 61 in July, the fabulous Moolah.
Oh, the ageless Lillian Ellison. She, in 85 was the MTV stuff. She was 62 when she was on MTV. She was old enough to be Cyndi Lauper's grandmother.
When she beat Wendy Richter as the Spider Woman for the title in 85.
Yeah.
She was 62 years old.
Yeah. And Vince still thought that she was going to be able to fucking, and she almost did hold Wendy down against her will at a surprise. But I mean, it is what it is. Starting in the 70s, when I first started seeing her live, first time I saw her live would have been 75. She was past 50. And women's wrestling was not featured at that point, as we've talked about. It was an attraction that was honestly left over from a previous era when Guys couldn't go out and see nudie books and things like that. And unfortunately, Moolah, because of her firm conviction that she was the greatest ever, continued to put that makeup on and put that belt on and that beehive hairdo. And I never had a cross word with Moolah. And she was nothing but a Southern gentlewoman to me, and the Southern belle type of thing. But it was just ludicrous to see her out there at that age, and she could still take bumps, and she didn't mind taking them. And they'd slam her on the floor. I don't know how that big wide ass didn't just break wide open. But so it wasn't like she was tanking it, but she's a 60-year-old woman. And so visually, this was a case where the only reason nobody complained was because it's girl wrestling. And Moolah for the promoters, Moolah had always been the one to book the girls. So call Moolah, we'll get a couple of girls. And every once in a while, for the big show where all the titles are on the line, we'll have a women's title match. But I think it did look somewhat screwy to all of the fans, where there's this woman that's obviously she's pulling hair and she's a salty old bitch, but come on. But again, it was the women's match and nobody really gave a shit, fan-wise. They're like, okay.
I hadn't thought about the age, but when I did commentary once for Dennis Carluzzo, it was a Moolah and Mae Young against Rick Ratchet and Felipe the Pool Boy.
Oh, boy.
She was like 76 fucking years old. That's just crazy.
Hey, they did one of those, her and Mae Young, Moolah and Mae, did one of the Ladies International Wrestling Association conventions and banquets and things, and they had a card at a hotel somewhere in Massachusetts, and Moolah called and invited me to come up. That's why I got a picture of her and Killer Kowalski and Mae with me. I'm like, my God, I've seemed like an embryo. But Mae Young in this indie ring in a ballroom at a hotel, and she was 80. I know, I did the fucking math. I guarantee you, if she wasn't 80, she was fucking close. Took a slam off the top, and the ring didn't bounce, but she did. And I'm like, my God, why are they still doing this, and how can they? If you did that to me now, it'd break me in pieces, and I'm 10 or 15 years younger than she was.
Well, there it is. The wrestlers in their 50s and 60s in 1984. A hell of a list there, Jim. And of course, maybe if they were around today, they'd have merchandise that they were selling on their own store, with a great partner like our partner in Shopify.
Boy, if Moolah was around today, who knows what she'd be selling online. I can say that with no fear of contradiction. There'd be no telling. But folks, if you've been sitting on a business idea or sitting on anything, Shopify makes it easy to make it happen, because everything that you need to start selling is included from day one. I'm talking about the moment your first customer is ready to pay. Well, Shopify checkout helps more of them finish their purchase. They may try to leave your page. No, Shopify checkout is going to yank them back. It's going to display a sign right across their computer. Son of a bitch, you leave without spending any money, we'll track you down and find your dog. That's what it, and that's why.
Not what? No, that's not.
Well,
no.
And when the customer. Well, that's a deep subject. When the customer comes back, their details have already been saved. So it's one tap and they're done. You do not have to double tap your customers. They can tap one time and you've got their money and you're finished with them. No need for them anymore. Just roll them in a ditch somewhere because you've got their bankroll.
Not even metaphorically. We treat
and you also, you have all their personal information. Let's say they've entered, I don't know,
you got a
social security number.
Oh boy.
Their personal address. If they don't spend money with you on a regular basis, Shopify will come knock on their door and say, hey, you haven't sent Billy any money this week.
None of this is what happens. None of this is necessary.
You got a nice front yard here. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it. Somebody could just come over here and dig it up. You wouldn't know what happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, I remind you, this is kind of like Jim's Mercury Theater here. This is
yes.
Kind of like
the Mercury. Well, the Mercury.
This is part
it's
of the
hot.
show, but if we get past the show, what we're talking about is actual commerce and business. And of course, we all need help. We all need an online partner that can help us with commerce and selling our products like we do. We are
commercially.
I'm just babbling, and we're having a good time here today, ladies.
What in the world would it mean to you folks out there to know that you are gonna? They've already got it figured out how you're going to get paid. Shopify handles the setup and the checkout. You just have to focus on growing your business because Shopify, they'll be sending you a package over by special courier. He's a guy that wears a pork pie hat.
He won't stop.
And he's going to hand you an envelope with cash about 3 times a day.
No, he won't. No, there is no he. It won't be happening.
Yeah. There's multiple people. One guy can't cover the whole country. Shopify powers millions of businesses worldwide. So you'll know that they're going to power yours because you're going to be building on the same platform as the biggest names in the game. All the big businesses. All the big corporations, the Gambino family, they're all involved with Shopify.
Again, this is so not necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about your legitimate business and, of course, the legitimate business.
Yes, they're legitimate businessmen. And, folks, if you'd like to join the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club also,
for Christ's sake.
That's the thing you can do with Shopify. They've got a variety of
thing you can do with Shopify.
They've got a variety of social clubs.
That's not a thing you can do
around the greater Jersey area that you can go and you can meet like-minded individuals who want to take money from other people just like you do.
That is invitation only. What we're talking about is something open to the public, like working with our good friends at Shopify who work with us and help us. And oh my God, I hear them now. They're saying, tell Jim to tell the audience about the promo code at once without saying anything else ever. Please.
Okay. Ever again. Nothing else. You can get a free trial now. We used to charge you $1. And that was cheap at twice the price, but now it's completely free. You can get a free trial by going to shopify.com/JCE. They can show you how they can take your business and propel it into the stratosphere with all of the online internet things and the various sundry help that they can give you with assistance and pickpockets, things like that. Shopify.com/JCE, a free trial. The guy will come in, he'll lift your wallet and then stick it back in your pocket again. You'll never know it's been gone.
No, of course.
Shopify.com/JCE.
Yes to that part. Shopify.com/JCE. We trust them. You can too, our good friends.
Free trial. I mean, what are you out besides your honor and dignity?
Once again, hold on to your honor and dignity with our friends at Shopify, shopify.com/JCE. All right.
What in the world was that?
Well, that's the question. What in the world or another world? I'm not sure where we came from or what we are doing and not sure where we're going, but we are back with more.
It's raining.
It's raining.
I got some rain going on. We got that going for us.
Well, it's always raining somewhere. And of course, today, Jim, it's raining wrestling talk down upon our heads. Let's get some questions from the Cult of Cornette. This one was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Mark Robinson. If Jim was to start a new wrestling company, who would he hire behind the scenes in which roles to make it work?
Oh, good Lord.
So many people ask you about what wrestlers you'd hire. No one asks you about who you would hire behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. This is an essay question with research to be done, depending on what you were going to do and all the positions you need to fill. But I can tell you from my past experiences, Delirious is tremendous, has a tremendous wrestling mind, and is great to work with as far as I was concerned in creative and Ring of Honor. I think that part of the problem is if I was going to have a wrestling training program to go along with this, I'd want Danny Davis, but he's retired and he wouldn't piss on a fucking wrestling ring if it was on fire right now. You would want, trainers like Tom Pritchard or Rip Rogers. Are they interested in getting back involved at that level in something like this? It would take up all their time. As far as announcers, I got to be honest with you, of the young fellows, the cream of the crop that I've worked with and saw over the past several years, Ian Riccaboni is tremendous to me. Rich Bikini did a good job on MLW, even though he was handicapped by, Jesus Christ, with just doing 18 or 20 matches over and over with no real goddamn break in between in the course of a night, that type of thing. There's no automatic. I don't have an automatic referee like I did in Smoky Mountain. I knew it was Brian Hildebrand from the time we envisioned the company. I just wanted to make sure that he was involved in some fashion. And I thought that would be the best place for him because, he always wanted to manage and he was a great worker as a wrestler, but he didn't have the size and he didn't have the promo, but he had the mind for wrestling and he was honest and he worked hard. Am I giving you a bunch of bullshit right now? It's basically everybody that I am personally aware of that I would trust and want to be involved in any position in a company is either my age or dead. How about that?
Well, with the understanding that as you would start this new company of yours, you would meet, run into, hear about younger people that you hadn't previously run into. Maybe you find some new people, but in terms of behind the scenes, from people you've worked with, who would be your Sandy Scott? Who would be handling who'd be your ideal guy for production right now if you could pick?
The Thunder now as we...
Is that what that was? That was the Thunder?
Oh, that was the Thunder. Our first choice in Ring of Honor for production was Keith Mitchell, but he probably saw the future better than we did and say, well, I got a bird's nest on the ground here in TNA. And, this is a new venture. And wouldn't you know who won the pony? Then Sinclair basically lowballed everybody that we tried to hire in production, which has led to some of the problems. So he was right in making that decision. Again, what I always did was make lists of people that I worked with that struck me right, that I was impressed by. When I was, booking the TV talent in Stamford, I kept a list of the geographic areas that we did TVs in, and I knew that guys like Chris Daniels and Steve Boz lived in Chicago, or I knew that Ace Darling and Devin Storm and those guys lived in the Northeast, and I had some guys in the Carolinas, etc. And you would call them, or I would call them and say, hey, we've got TV and such, and maybe they'd get seen somehow, and that would, help elevate them. So I would keep lists of whoever I would ever need. And so when I started Smoky Mountain, because I didn't just think of it and start the next day, I had written down and thought seriously and tried to come up with everybody that I could remember, that who would be good here and who would be close and who lives close enough I could afford them, not only on the roster, but Tommy Young. He agented for us the first year or so, I guess, that we were in business, because he couldn't referee anymore because of his bad neck. But at the same time, since so many of our buildings had separate locker rooms and the heels couldn't talk to the baby faces, and nobody else was as experienced at carrying finishes and doing things like that as Tommy Young was. So he would carry the finishes back and forth, and he would look at the referees, whether it be Brian Hildebrand, Mark Curtis, or some of our other guys, and help them. And after about a year, he called me, he said, Corny, he said, I don't really think you need me anymore. He said, Mark Curtis is doing a great job with the finishes, and he's turned into a good referee and a blah, blah, blah. So it just depended on who I needed to do what. I would have jotted down names at the time that I thought were good in those positions. And you didn't have to write down announcers at that point because Bob Caudle was free. Not in terms of his pay, but he wasn't working in another wrestling program. And we always wanted Bob. Les Thatcher, we got as much as we could, but as I've mentioned before, early on in Smoky Mountain, he had a full-time business in Cincinnati, and he could only make a shot here and there. But it just, it depended on who became available and who I'd worked with in the past. And if I was going to make a list like that now from everybody that exists today, I would need to have seen these people work, got an impression of them, worked with them, know them, whatever.
Well, who would you trust? Who would you trust out there? Is it a Delirious to make some of these judgments on people you haven't seen, whether it's wrestlers or behind the scenes people?
Yeah, well, I already did. That was the thing. Everybody think, oh, Cornette's a fucking micromanager and he, has to do everything himself. When Delirious, who also was running the Ring of Honor wrestling school, would say, hey, I found this guy, or I got this guy, or this guy came to a tryout, or what, great. Just like I took the word of Kevin Sullivan when he said, hey, I got this big redheaded kid in Puerto Rico. What's his name? Mark Calloway. Okay. Or I'm sorry, Glenn Jacobs, rather, or Dutch when we needed a skyscraper. I got the big redheaded kid in Memphis. What's his name? Mark Calloway. Same thing. You take recommendations from people that you believe know what the fuck they're talking about. And in OVW, we would always ask Rip whenever any of the guys in the beginners class were ready to do jobs on TV. They couldn't get on TV unless Rip said they were okay. So you got to take people's, word for it sometimes, or advice or recommendation or whatever. And sometimes it's good and maybe sometimes it might not be.
Jim, this question was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Orlando Bourne. I was watching a Raw match between Marty Jannetty and Owen Hart. About halfway through the match, it appeared Owen and Jim were becoming frustrated. Does Jim have any memories of that match?
What, we were becoming frustrated in the middle of the match with Jannetty?
It doesn't specify.
Because we were the heels, right? Of course we're going to be frustrated. If there was something going on that like, oh, fuck, this is the shits, with Owen, you wouldn't have noticed it. I hope maybe with me, you might have noticed it, but with Owen, you wouldn't have. But if we were being frustrated because as the heels, we were being foiled or things weren't working, I don't know how to address the question because I don't remember the match.
All right. Thank you for your question.
But I'm honest. I'm not going to make shit up.
Here's a question that was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Ben Stout. What are Jim's thoughts on Tajiri? He was my favorite Japanese wrestler growing up.
He was a nice talent. I'm trying to remember the outstanding Tajiri match that I ever saw. It hasn't stuck with me. I don't remember him being the shits either, so I'm not going to knock him. He was, Brian, help me. Where was Tajiri working during his illustrious career?
A lot of people think of him, ECW and then WWE, and he was used pretty good for a while in WWE. Yeah.
I was about to say, besides, the WWE run, and I didn't see that much ECW, but I mean, I have no problem with the young man, and I don't think I ever really worked with him, and I didn't study him a lot. But it's nice to know that he's somebody's favorite wrestler.
Okay, thank you for your question. Let's go to our next non-answer. Jim, this one was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group.
Hey, somebody give me the fucking question. What's the lowdown on Mahatma Gandhi? What the I don't...
He's dead, Jim.
Yeah, but there you go.
That's the lowdown. He's dead.
That's the lowdown.
Jim, here's a question that was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Richard Ives in the UK. I was wondering if Jim ever worked with Takeshi Morishima during his time in Ring of Honor. If so, what are your opinions of him? And do you think he had the talent to work in WWE?
Was he the big tubby fellow
that people said resembled Terry Gordy? Yes.
No. I remember him because Ross the Merchandise Weasel, I was in the office one day and I looked at the wall and there was this big giant poster of apparently this guy. And I said, who's that? Or something that effect. And Ross the Merchandise Weasel, that's when Margaret Cho was the Ring of Honor champion. I don't remember being on a show with him. I don't remember meeting him, and I don't remember watching any of his fucking matches. And I don't know where these questions are coming from.
Jim, our next question.
Just run down the names on the FBI's 10 most wanted list and see if I know about any of them either.
Jim, our next question sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Tony Wenkelwitz.
Oh, come on.
Jim is working in OVW in 2001. Vince tells him he needs to get Mason Rook or Speedball Bailey ready for the main roster. Who does Jim think he can get main roster ready? Quitting isn't an option in this scenario.
Well, okay, but get main roster ready. That just means booking him and using him in my program to show him off to the best possible length, I guess. I gotta say, I'd take Bailey. Because
wow, I did not expect you to say that. Wow.
Well, because here's the thing. I would strip him down naked and I'd redress him and I'd get him a new haircut. And there's nothing wrong with the name Mike Bailey for most of the part, but there was an outlaw promoter here in Louisville years ago named Joe Bailey. So I might even change the fucking name just to not make that unpalatable. And use him and don't let him talk if he can't do any better than what he's been doing. And use him as an athletic baby face and see if you could teach him to work without all the goddamn hoo-ha and phony bullshit.
But Mason Rook has some size. Again, imagine if you had Cena, Batista, Lesnar, Orton, Rook.
Well, okay, but then since I'm going to have to strip Bailey naked and change everything from scratch, then maybe I'd take Rook and I'd put a fucking mask on him and a full body suit and give him a manager. And like we talked about the other day, call him the Blob.
The Blob, yeah.
So yeah, come to think of it, because at least
who can stop the
that
Blob?
way he could fall on people. Who can stop the Blob? And he could shoot a guy in the turnbuckle and then he could roll across the ring and fucking mash the guy. Whatever. That might be easier in Bailey because then you've still got a goddamn, a guy the size of 3 sperm cells to deal with, even if you changed his look and his name and his outfit and his way of working. Yeah, give me the Blob.
How do you think either guy would have worked with Brock Lesnar in 2000?
I think Brock would have probably suplexed Mason Rook till he was fucking, his kids were born dizzy just because he would have had fun doing it to a guy that big. And unless Bailey irritated him, I don't think he would have really had anything to do with Bailey.
All right. Our next question, Jim, sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Shane O'Neill. Will we ever hear the full story of the rat in Spartanburg that looked like Anna Nicole Smith and everybody but Flair got to enjoy?
No.
I don't even know what that story is. I must have missed
No,
that one.
You'll probably never hear any more of that.
But we will have Polaroids on the website, so stay tuned to see.
Actually, those may have been confiscated also.
Our next question, Jim, sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group. This just trails off. I'll read it. By Joe Fox.
Just trails off, kind of like this program.
Should top guys like Roman, Cody, Punk, and Kevin Owens be able to demand? That's weird. Not even demand. He didn't get to the D. Just demand. I don't know. Thank you, Joe, for your question. That was one of the better ones here this week.
What should they be able to demand? That was it?
That was all. I don't know what he...
that was the entire question.
That was the entire question about the demand.
So do you think he had a stroke and fell on the send button?
I don't know. I mean, now I just gave him a thumbs up for his thing, so he'll go back and see it. Maybe he'll realize, oh, shit. We'll see what happens. Real quick before the last thing here.
Yes.
I don't know how much you would have seen of it, but what do you think of any of the pushback that CM Punk is getting right now? Not that he would care or that he would even see all of it, but the fans who think CM Punk is doing what he used to criticize The Rock or other veterans of doing, coming back, getting a title shot, getting the title, and being part-time. I've seen a lot of weird complaints in the last few days.
Everybody is part-time now. What do they wrestle? Once a week? Twice a week? If they go to Europe or Brazil or Swaziland or whatever, they do 3 nights in a row, whatever the case. But here's the thing. Your biggest stars in the wrestling business are all part-time now, not only because the wrestling business is part-time, but because of their contracts that they're making multi-millions of dollars. They don't have to go out and make fucking Odessa or Midland or fucking Conroe, Texas, or where I'm all in Texas now. It's Punk, it's Roman. Cody says he's full-time, which he is. He's there for everything, but they don't run full-time, and it's not a knock on him. So the point is, Sami was a useful transition. It wasn't even like they gave him the belt because, well, he deserved a run with it. No, it fit. It fit the fucking story. You've got your big stars ready to fight for this thing, but in comes the fucking shit disturber, the spoiler, the guy that's a star and is making plenty of money, but he's not the guy or on the level of the 4 to 6 guys. But he wins the belt and it causes the turmoil. Now as Punk wins, Cody didn't get his shot. Now you got Cody and Punk. And whatever Orton will do next, he's on that level. Roman Reigns. So I don't understand why that the people be mad at Punk when the director of the movie said, okay, we're going to have Cody lose it in this deal to Sami, and then before Cody gets another chance, Punk will come in. That's the way it's booked, idiots. So what are you mad at Punk? You think Punk's in there, boy, you really need to put the belt back on me. It doesn't mean any more money anymore. It used to. Not anymore. Everybody's making millions. So I don't understand what the problem is.
And again, these guys at an older age now are main eventers in WWE. I think if you look at 15 years ago, whatever, when The Rock came back, I think Punk was wrong. The Rock at that point was a major star. He hadn't been gone from wrestling as long as he would, later be gone from wrestling. Him coming back to work with Cena was a pretty big fucking deal.
Well, yeah. And I mean, again, 15 years ago, you could say The Rock coming back, fuck, roll out the red carpet. Now it's like, oh, him again? What's he going to fuck up this time? But it was a different fucking situation at that point.
Did you see the latest Rock video that he filmed? That he had Gowertz film that was filmed?
I'm able to avoid those. I don't know how, but somehow I'm able to avoid them.
It was like him in England for whatever. I don't even know what it was for, but he had his camera person following him, and there was another camera person there, and a whole bunch of fans. And in this sea of people who knew that Dwayne Johnson was going to be wherever this was, some guy is holding up a couple old British magazines and programs with Peter Maivia on it.
Oh.
And The Rock sees him like, please, come here, let me see this. Oh, this is my grandfather. Like, it seemed a little set up, And then, what is your name? Oh, let's take a picture together. Like, it just seemed completely like,
oh, yeah. So
I'm a normal person who can, I'm a normal person who can meet the normal person and get along with them. Look at me now. But why was he filming it? Why was the whole thing being filmed? The phoniest human being on the planet. But going back to Punk, I mean, he's one of the top guys there. Anyone who has a problem with him being in this role right now is an idiot because he's not taking any younger guy's spot. He's a main event guy in the main event. And by the way, what's happening right now, I mean, I hope it's not a fucking four-way, but there's intrigue. There's intrigue about what's coming next for SummerSlam. So it was clearly the right move.
Yeah, and no, they can't muddle it up with a multiple man match the first time around. I don't think on this one. They've got a money match. They need to just have it.
Well, Jim, as we begin to wind things up quickly, let's play a quick game of WWE Trivia.
Uh-oh.
This is from the World Wrestling Federation Express Wrestling Trivia game. 800 questions for ages 8 and up. 2 to 6 players. Jim, at WrestleMania 11, the outside ring interviews were conducted by who?
Was I don't know if I was on WrestleMania 11.
That was
Lawrence
that the
Taylor.
one
I missed?
Lawrence Taylor.
Lawrence Taylor. I did not know that.
No, he's not. No, I'm saying that was the Lawrence Taylor WrestleMania, not that Lawrence Taylor.
Well, then I was on it. I thought it was Lawrence Taylor doing the interviews. I was like, oh, then I didn't see that.
No.
Yeah, I guess I was there. Yeah, because he almost fucking threw up when he came back after working with Bigelow. Regis Philbin.
Jim Ross. Jim Ross, the answer.
Son of a bitch.
At the 1993 Survivor Series, the first man eliminated from the Fanatics was Pierre, Jock, or Crush.
I'm going to say Crush.
That is correct. Crush is the answer.
I figured it's because he's the only one that wouldn't bitch about it.
On the Pile Driver video album, who sang Jive Soul Bro?
I think that would be Slick.
That's right, Slick. Also, I would have accepted the Doctor of Style or the Slickster. Let's go to the next card here. At WrestleMania 11, the urn was stolen from Paul Bearer by who?
Oh, who did that evil thing?
I never would have guessed this, actually, if this is indeed correct.
I can't remember.
Kama
Mustafa.
Before he was Kama Mustafa, when he was just Kama the Supreme Fighting Machine.
Ah, yes.
Awful gimmick. At WrestleMania 2, the former boxer in Mr. T's corner was who? He was in several interviews as training Mr. T, of being a part of the training.
Well, I thought it was Lou Duva.
He was the trainer, but what former boxer was in his corner?
Former boxer. God damn it. The fellow, was he French or French Canadian?
No.
No. Okay. Well, that was.
What was that?
No, we had George Chuvalo on the show in Montreal the following year, and I was in that with Owen. So blah blah blah. George Foreman.
Smokin' Joe Frazier.
Son of a bitch, I was close.
You were close. 1987 Survivor Series. One team was One Man Gang, Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy, Hacksaw. Well, he wasn't Hacksaw. The Natural Butch Reed, and who?
Now wait a minute. Give it to it's Bundy. It's Andre. It's Reed. Who now?
One Man Gang.
Ronnie Andre Reed Gang. I'm going to say Freddie Blassie.
Well, that was a little past his time. Ravishing Rick Rude is the answer.
Okay, all right.
What was the name of Ron Bass's bullwhip?
Oh, Jim, why don't you ask about Dutch? I know Dutch Mantel's bullwhip was Shoe Baby.
Everyone knows that. What about Ron Bass?
Ron Bass's bullwhip was Whipper Billy Watson.
Miss Betsy. Miss Betsy is the answer there, Jim. Who broke Andre's leg in 1981?
Well, he did, stepping out of bed, but they blamed Killer Khan.
That's the answer, Killer Khan. Of course, that was what was told to the worldwide wrestling audience. Who did Yokozuna eliminate to win the 1993 Royal Rumble? So right before you managed him. Randy Savage, Bret Hart, or Mr. Perfect?
Savage.
That is correct. Randy Macho Man
Wow.
Savage. It was a weird thing where he hits the elbow and he gets on top of Yokozuna to pin him in the Royal Rumble.
Yoko kicked him off and he went over the top rope.
Yeah, which is a cool bump.
Kicked out of the cover.
It doesn't explain why he was trying to pin him in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah. He had that spot that he had done before. He'd been waiting for a chance to use it.
Jim, the 1968 Rookie of the Year was who?
Jesus Christ.
What is this from? Does it say what the source for this voting is? No, it does not.
Yeah, who named this person?
The answer, Victor Rivera. I'm not even.
Well, I was going to say if it's WWF trivia, but yeah, I wouldn't have got Victor Rivera anyway.
Which wrestler is the heaviest in the WWE? 1997, these came out.
Oh, well, okay, it would have to be Yoko.
Yokozuna. That is indeed the correct answer there. What part of a wrestler can this be?
Oh boy.
What part of a wrestler is most vulnerable to serious injury?
His mind.
I'm going to give it to you. Ego. Ego is the answer.
I was thinking more of just brain in general, but go ahead.
Who was the first man out of the 1993 Royal Rumble? Max Moon, Papa Shango, or Skinner?
Skinner.
Papa Shango. Papa Shango.
Well, seemed like he would have put a spell on somebody over that.
I wasn't a big fan of the Ultimate Warrior puking and having the black ooze come down, but other than that, I thought the Papa Shango gimmick was pretty cool.
I liked it. I liked it better when it was done by Jeffrey Holder in Live and Let Die.
It's nice to know questions like this are on the trivia here. Who was Miguel Perez's U.S. Tag Team Championship partner in the 1950s?
Rocca.
Antonino Rocca. Who was the king at WrestleMania 3?
Harley Race.
Harley Race, that is correct. At the September 1995 In Your House, who was Jean-Pierre Lafitte's opponent? Bret Hart, Fatu, or Diesel?
That was, wait a minute, what date?
September 95.
That was Bret, wasn't it?
That is indeed correct. Bret the Hitman Hart is the answer.
Because Pierre could work, and Bret wanted to have a good match with him. Unfortunately, Pierre got sidetracked a lot of times by Jacques Rougeau's politicking and what Jacques would tell him that he believed as a fellow Frenchman versus what he could see with his own eyes.
Jim, who did Bobby Heenan try to sell to Ted DiBiase in 1989?
Andre.
No,
wait, hold on. In 89, Virgil.
Hercules.
And
that was the babyface turn of Hercules when he was sold to Ted DiBiase, or they tried to. In 1975, who was Blackjack Mulligan's Tag Team Championship partner in the WWE?
Blackjack Lanza.
That is correct. At WrestleMania 3, Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake were accompanied by who?
Oh, Ozzy Osbourne.
No, that was against them the year before. Dino Bravo, but also Johnny V, obviously.
Well, I thought that Ozzy was in there somewhere with that.
Where did the October 1995 In Your House take place? Winnipeg, Orlando, or Los Angeles?
Oh, was Winnipeg, wasn't it?
That is correct, Winnipeg.
Yeah, the Kansas City of Canada.
At the 1993 SummerSlam, who did Jim Cornette manage? Heavenly Bodies, Head Shrinkers, or Owen and the Bulldog?
The Heavenly Bodies. Owen and Bulldog were not teamed up at that point in time, and Head Shrinkers were Alphas.
Who did Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda win their first tag title from?
Was it Sheik and Volkov?
They won their second title from them after they defeated them. I'll give you
the Samoans.
No, Adonis and Murdoch. And Murdoch. All right, Jim, a few more here. Who did Windham and Rotunda beat for their second WWE Tag Team Chip?
Wow, right.
At the October 1995 In Your House, what was the first match? Hunter versus Fatu, Guns versus Razor and Kid, or Jannetty versus Goldust?
I say Hunter and Fatu.
That is correct. Hunter and Fatu. I don't remember that match. Probably a good reason for that.
Nobody was supposed to. It was the first match.
At this point in time, 1997, Jim, who was the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion?
The Honky Tonk Man.
The Honky Tonk Man, indeed. At WrestleMania 3, Ricky Steamboat was accompanied by who?
Oh, shit.
He would play a part in the finish. He rode to the ring, coming and going with him.
Yes, I remember that. That they did that. The Crocodile Hunter.
George the Animal Steele.
That's right.
George the Animal Steele, who was obsessed with Elizabeth. What was the name of Jake's wife, who he had a feud with Rick Rude?
Cheryl.
That's right, Cheryl Roberts.
Yeah, I had a little feud with her too.
Did you?
Tell her to keep her. Well, I wanted to tell her to keep her mouth shut when she was sitting in on payoff discussions with me and Jake. Jesus Christ. She's another one of the wives that, well, we came all the way up here. I didn't book you, lady. You didn't have to come nowhere.
Well, you may not be the last person to have dealt with that problem. Jim, who won the first Royal Rumble?
That was a long time ago in a galaxy far away.
1988. Was it against the
It was see, I was busy.
Yeah.
I was having the bunkhouse stampede. I don't know.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Now I remember hearing that.
One 1994 Survivor Series team was Shawn, Diesel, Owen, Neidhart, and who? Jeff Jarrett, Jerry Lawler, or the British Bulldog?
Bulldog.
Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett.
I don't
Boy,
remember that.
I don't think that tag team would ever sit down for a nice picnic around the same table.
Who managed Jimmy Snuka when he first entered the WWE?
Ooh, that was Albano, wasn't it?
That is indeed correct. Captain Lou
Yes.
Albano. To whom did Bruno Sammartino lose his WWE Championship in 1971?
Ivan Koloff.
That is indeed correct. At the October 1995 In Your House, who was Marty Jannetty's opponent? Goldust, Waylon Mercy, or Savio Vega?
Well, wasn't that another question phrased differently? Wasn't it Goldust?
Oh, that is correct. It is Goldust.
Yes.
There you go. At the October 1995 In Your House, who was Goldust's opponent?
Well, what the...
Bam Bam Bigelow, Razor Ramon, or Marty Jannetty?
I don't know. I don't know for sure. I better check.
Who took on Backlund in the WWE versus NWA title match in 1980? And it's WWF here for the record.
Now, so say it again.
1980 NWA versus WWF title match.
Oh, that would have been Race and Backlund.
That
right?
is correct. Harley Race. Harley Race is the answer. At the 1990 SummerSlam, what animals did Bad News Brown bring with him? Bees, snakes, or rats? There you go.
Rats.
That's the answer. Bees. That would have really been something. He came over with a bunch of bees. Two more questions here today. Who defeated Wendy Richter to win the WWE title in 1985?
Moolah.
Be
Well,
more
the Spider
specific.
Lady.
Spider Lady.
The Spider Moolah.
And finally, Jim, at the October 1995 In Your House, who was the king? Bret Hart, Mabel, or Undertaker?
In 1995?
That's correct.
That was Mabel.
That is indeed correct.
Yes, notoriously.
I'm going to ask you this next one just because this is wrong. And then we'll end with this. Who did Owen Hart, then the Blue Blazer, beat in his WWF debut in 1985?
Well, he wasn't the Blue Blazer in his debut, was he?
He wasn't the Blue Blazer in his debut. He's, I think, the Blue Angel. I think he may have wrestled as Owen something, like Owen James or something, maybe once. But also, that wasn't 85. It was 88. So this is completely...
Yeah, I don't know. What answer do they have?
Steve Lombardi,
I don't know what's going on.
We have no idea if that's true or not.
Yeah.
All right. What former WWE wrestler had the nickname Unpredictable?
Johnny Rodz.
Johnny Rodz. Was there a wrestler more predictable?
No, well, actually, it was unpredictable when he changed his name to Java Rook and went to Los Angeles for 3 months.
That's right.
I was buying those magazines. And because it was Los Angeles and it was a big market, they gave them publicity even still at that point when business was on its way down. And suddenly Java Rook is the America's champion. And they didn't say it was Johnny Rodz. I had never seen WWF video at that point. It was pre-home video. I'm like, who the fuck is Java Rook? And I didn't recognize him from the pictures. And he left and you never heard of him again. And then years later, I found out it was Johnny Rodz. But that had to fuck with people's minds that paid attention in those days to the wrestling business without knowing the inside of it, that this main event guy pops up, has a run, has never been seen before and was never seen after.
Imagine how they felt in New York when they would get the Spanish language show out of L.A.
That's probably what helped kill Los Angeles. They said, well, Jesus Christ, this guy couldn't beat cream with an outboard motor here, and now he's the fucking champion in Los Angeles.
Well, great name, Java Rook, one of the great names. But with that, Jim, WWF Trivia is over, and we are out of here. Let me get this. All right. Some nice, pleasant tunes to wrap up the day and wrap up the show. We'll be back in a few days on The Experience. And, of course, next week back here on the Drive-Thru. Go through the archive. Patreon.com/Cornette. $5 a month gets you access to the archive. Going back to 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and subscribe today. Full episodes, clips of the episodes, omnibus collections. Just search for Jim Cornette. It'll pop right up. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. What's going on, Jim?
Rain ponchos if the weather gets any worse. And other stuff at JimCornette.com.
At JimCornette.com. The Drive-Thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 877-50-STEVE. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until The Experience in a few days, and next week back here on the Drive-Thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!